$300,000, Mason. Right now? Or this wedding is off. In front of hundreds of guests, his fiancée's voice was as cold as ice. She chose her worthless brother over him, spitting on the life savings his parents had scraped together for their dowry. Humiliated, broke, and alone, his world was collapsing. Then, a voice echoed in his mind. Ding. The ultimate choice system has been bound. Option 1. Abandon the wedding, denounce her greed. Reward. $3 million in cash. Option 2. Beg her to continue. Accept the humiliation. Reward. A lifetime of regret. He looked at her scornful face and made his choice. This wedding is off. Seconds later, a courier burst in, hauling a box filled with $3 million in brand new bills. The scent of ink and money filled the hall, and the look on his ex-fiancée's face shifted from arrogance to desperate, pathetic greed. But that was just the beginning. From a scorned groom to a terrifying martial arts master who casually acquires a $100 million supercar, breaks the stock market with a single thought, and cripples assassins sent for the woman who truly deserves his heart. They thought they broke a poor man. They had no idea they'd just awakened a king. Chapter 1. In the banquet hall of the Jiangzhou Grand Hotel, crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant, warm glow, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of lilies and champagne. Around every round table, draped in crimson cloths, sat guests whispering with joyful expressions. Everything, from the glittering decorations to the melodic background music, heralded the start of a grand wedding. Mason Su stood by the stage, his sharp suit outlining his handsome features, the red corsage on his chest a vibrant splash of color. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the heart that hammered in his chest with happiness. 2 years. 2 years since he and Nina Li met and fell in love, and today was meant to be their perfect ending. His gaze swept through the crowd, landing on the beautiful figure in a pure white wedding dress, his eyes filled with a deep, tender love. But in the next second, that tenderness was utterly shattered. Nina's voice, like a blade dipped in ice, cut through the festive atmosphere. Mason, if you can't produce another $300,000 today, this wedding is off. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly to every corner of the room. The air seemed to freeze. The guests' whispers ceased, and countless gazes, shocked, curious, zeroed in on Mason, pricking his skin like needles. The smile on his face froze, and he felt all the blood rush to his head. Nina, what are you talking about? He stepped forward, his voice hoarse with disbelief. We already paid the dowry. $200,000. For that money, my parents emptied their life savings and borrowed from relatives. How can you now? Nina didn't even look at him directly, turning her head slightly to reveal a beautiful but ice-cold profile. That's not my problem. If I don't see $300,000 in cash today, you can forget about me getting in your family's wedding car. Mason's heart sank. He looked pleadingly toward his future in-laws, hoping they would speak up. But his future father-in-law merely lifted his teacup, blew on the surface, and said faintly, Mason, Nina has always been a girl with her own ideas. As her parents, we've always supported her decisions. A flame of anger ignited in Mason's heart, but he suppressed it fiercely. He knew he couldn't lose his temper today. With so many friends and family watching, this wedding had to happen. He lowered his stance, almost begging. Nina, please, can you give me some time? Let's just get through the ceremony first. Don't let everyone watch this farce, okay? Give you time. Nina finally turned to face him, a scornful smirk playing on her lips. Mason, don't think I don't know what you're planning. If I agree today, you'd find 100 ways to delay paying that $300,000, wouldn't you? Mason fell silent, finding himself speechless. Just then, his uncle, Greg, couldn't stand it any longer. He stepped forward, a forced smile on his face. In-laws, the auspicious time is almost here. Can we perhaps discuss the dowry later? Our side is waiting for the newlyweds. Before he finished, Nina's mother snapped. Who are you calling in-law? It's not certain this wedding is even happening. Uncle Greg's face turned beet red. The relatives on Mason's side looked grim, the atmosphere thick with embarrassment. And Nina's good-for-nothing brother, Carl Li, lounged with his legs crossed, impatiently urging, Hey, I'm talking to you, Mason. Why are you being so wishy-washy? Just give us a straight answer. Are you getting the money or not? Mason ignored him, his eyes fixed on Nina. I just want to know why, he asked, each word deliberate. Why the sudden demand for another $300,000? Fine. You want to know? I'll tell you. Nina said, no longer hiding her intentions, her tone almost charitable. Carl has a girlfriend, and her family is demanding a $500,000 dowry. My parents had a hard time raising me, so I plan to cover it with my dowry money. Do you understand now? $300,000. If I see it today, I'll marry you. She was sacrificing her own future for her worthless brother. The thought struck Mason like a bolt of lightning. The anger he had suppressed erupted like a volcano, consuming all his reason. His best friend, Sean Gao, couldn't hold back any longer and rushed forward, roaring, Nina, don't you dare go too far. Too far. Nina glanced mockingly at Sean, then elegantly sat down in a nearby chair, her posture graceful, her words sharp. Mason, I'm telling you, you don't have to pay. There are plenty of others willing to. Whether this wedding happens today is up to you. Bastard. Sean's fists clenched, veins popping on his arms. Uncle Greg sighed and pulled Mason aside, whispering, Mason, maybe. We can think of something else. I have some of my pension money. Your parents can try to scrape some more together. Sean also relaxed his fists and said in a low voice, Mason, I've got 100,000. Just got a loan to open my shop. You can use it first. A wave of warmth washed over Mason's heart, followed by a deeper sorrow. He shook his head firmly. No, Uncle Greg, that's your retirement fund. Sean, that's your startup capital. I can't touch it. In the midst of this chaos and despair, a cold, mechanical voice echoed, clear as day, inside his mind. Ding. The ultimate choice system has been successfully bound. Option 1. Abandon the wedding. Denounce Nina's behavior. Reward. $3 million in cash. Option 2. Compromise. Accept the help, gather the dowry, and continue the wedding. The system will automatically unbind. Mason froze. A system? He'd read novels online, but to have it happen to him, especially at such a dramatic moment, left him momentarily dazed. He quickly confirmed that the voice and the virtual panel before his eyes were real. In an instant, all the hurt, anger, and resentment found an outlet. His resolve hardened, and he straightened his back. Uncle Greg, Sean, thank you. Mason's voice was quiet but held an unprecedented calm and determination. But this wedding, I'm calling it off. What? Mason, don't be foolish. Uncle Greg was shocked. Nina shot up from her chair, screeching, Mason, you dare say that again? Hey, you didn't hear me? Mason slowly raised his head, his gaze like lightning, locking onto Nina. Every word seemed squeezed from between his teeth. Nina, you listen to me. I am not marrying you. The 200,000 was my parents' blood and sweat. Now you want another 300,000 for that useless brother of yours? Sorry, I don't have it. And even if I did, I would never give it to you. You bastard. Mason, is this how you love me? You won't even pay a measly 300,000. Nina shrieked hysterically. Love you? You've got to be kidding me. Mason completely let go. Do you think my parents' money grows on trees? They worked hard to raise me, just like yours did for you. Why should I have to pay for your brother's wedding? Get lost. Whoever wants to marry you can, but I'm done. As he finished, the voice in his head sounded again. Ding. Congratulations, host. Your choice is complete. $3 million in cash will be delivered by courier in 10 seconds. Bastard. Mason, you're asking for it. Seeing his money slipping away, Carly snapped, grabbing a chair and rushing at him. Sean's burly frame immediately stepped in front of Mason like a wall, stopping Carl in his tracks. Just then, a loud shout came from the entrance. Who is Mason Sue? You have a delivery, please sign for it. All eyes turned to see a courier, panting, carrying a heavy cardboard box. The box was wrapped in black plastic and bound with thick yellow tape. Mason signed, and the courier asked enthusiastically, Big day, huh? Big wedding gift? Need a hand opening it. Go ahead, Mason nodded. He wanted to see if this system was real or not. Nina scoffed from the side. What an embarrassment. It won't be used anyway. The courier ignored her, quickly tearing off the tape and opening the box. The next second, he gasped, his eyes wide as saucers, a classic curse escaping his lips. Holy hell. Following him, the entire banquet hall of guests seemed to lose their vocabulary. Gasps and stunned cries filled the room. Inside the box, there were no silk blankets or home appliances. Instead, it was filled with neat stacks of brand new $100 bills. The unique shade of red gleamed under the crystal lights, and the rich smell of ink seemed to spill out, assaulting the senses of everyone present. Mason was the only one who remained calm. He casually took a stack from the box, pulled out 3 bills, and handed them to the courier. Thanks for your trouble. Thank you, boss. The courier took the money excitedly, then expertly eyed the box. A new bill weighs about 1.15 grams, so 10,000 is 115 grams. This box, including packaging, must be about 70 pounds, which is 35,000 grams. Divided by. So this is roughly $3 million. Dude, you're wasted as a courier, Mason said, impressed. Humbly, I was a senior accountant. Worked at a bank for 2 years, got bored, craved freedom. Anyway, gotta go. The courier said, and then dashed off. The room erupted. 3 million. It's really 3 million in cash. My God, the Li family just pushed away a golden goose. Mason, is this yours? Sean stammered. Who else's? Mason smiled. Come on, give me a hand. Let's get this to the car. You got it, Sean said, excitedly lifting the box, the heavy weight making him grin from ear to ear. All right, everyone, let's go. To our own party. Mason waved, preparing to leave with his groomsmen. Mason, wait. Nina lunged forward like a madwoman, grabbing his hand. Her previous coldness and arrogance had vanished, replaced by a fawning urgency. Mason, this was a surprise for me, wasn't it? I'm sorry, I was wrong, I apologize. We can go get married now. Seeing her instant transformation, Mason felt sick. What happened to your backbone? Where did it go? You're disgusting me. He forcefully shook her hand off. Ah, Nina screamed, then dramatically threw herself to the ground, clinging to Mason's ankle, her face streaked with tears. Mason, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please forgive me. You love me, right? Please marry me. Her pitiful act might have swayed a softer heart. But Mason's heart had turned to iron from the humiliation. At that moment, the system's voice sounded again in his mind. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Kick Nina away and leave. Reward. A Porsche 911, valued at $3 million. Option 2. Forgive Nina and continue the wedding. Reward. A cuckold's hat. Was there even a choice to be made? Mason sneered internally and made his decision without hesitation. Choice successful. Reward has been issued. The car key is now in the host's pocket. Get lost. Mason's voice was devoid of any emotion. He lifted his foot and kicked hard. Nina yelped in pain and let go, tumbling pathetically to the floor. As he kicked, an exquisite car key flew out of his pocket, landing right in front of Nina. The silver shield emblem was like a resounding slap across her face. Silver. I like it. Mason bent down, picked up the key that symbolized speed and wealth, and spun it elegantly on his finger. Let's go. He waved, and the wedding party followed him out. As they passed Nina's family, every gaze was filled with scorn. Outside the hotel, in the parking lot, Sean was struggling to stuff the box of money into a car trunk when Mason pressed the key fob. Not far away, a silver Porsche 911 responded with a crisp chirp, its lights flashing. The convertible top slowly retracted, revealing a luxurious interior. Whoa, Mason, this car. It's insane. Sean's eyes were practically glued to it. It's all right, Mason said casually, clapping his friend on the shoulder. If you like it, you can drive it. Mason, wait for me. Nina, holding up her wedding dress, came running out, crying. When she saw the dreamlike sports car, she froze. Mason slid into the driver's seat, feeling the embrace of the leather. He didn't spare Nina another glance, leaving her with one last, cold sentence. Remember to return my $200,000. That's my parents' hard-earned money. If I don't see it in 2 days, I'll see you in court. A thunderous roar erupted from the 911's engine. The deep growl swept through the parking lot, completely drowning out Nina's desperate cries. The silver sports car shot away like a bolt of lightning, leaving her family standing stunned amidst the ruins of their dignity. The car sped down the road, the wind rushing in, blowing away the sickening scent of perfume from the hotel. Mason and Sean arrived at the Marriott, the hotel his family had booked. It wasn't as grand as the Jeonjo Grand Hotel, but it felt comforting. At the entrance stood a large wedding poster of him and Nina. The two of them in the photo were smiling sweetly, a sight that now seemed utterly ironic. Sean looked at the poster and sighed. Mason, what a mess. An eyesore, Mason said, his face impassive. Take it down. We're going in. All right, Sean agreed without hesitation. He walked up and kicked the poster stand hard. The giant image that once symbolized happiness crashed to the ground and shattered. Chapter 2. The roar of the Porsche 911's engine died down in front of the Marriott Hotel. It lacked the opulence of the Jeonjo Grand Hotel, but it had a genuine, lively atmosphere. Mason and Sean got out of the car and immediately saw the massive wedding poster at the entrance. In the photo, he and Nina were nestled together, their smiles so bright they were almost blinding. Mason, what a mess, Sean said, looking at the poster with a bitter expression. We went to get the bride and came back empty-handed. An eyesore, Mason's voice was emotionless. Take it down. We're going in. Without another word, Sean walked up and kicked the poster's stand. The giant image, once a symbol of happiness, crashed to the ground in pieces. Just then, a sharp-eyed relative inside the hotel spotted them. The groom is back. A loud shout cut through the anxious chatter in the banquet hall. Immediately, the master of ceremonies' professional, booming voice filled the room through the speakers. Dear friends and family, let's give our warmest round of applause to welcome the bride and groom. Thunderous applause erupted as everyone craned their necks, looking expectantly toward the entrance. However, when the doors opened and Mason walked in, leading a group of his groomsmen, the applause died abruptly, as if snipped by invisible scissors. A strange silence filled the air, and the same question was written on every face. Where's the bride? The MC on stage was also stunned, microphone held to his lips, at a loss for words. Mason, with a calm expression, walked straight onto the stage and took the microphone from him. He took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping over the familiar, concerned faces in the crowd. Uncles, aunts, everyone, I'm terribly sorry. There's been a change of plans for today's wedding. The wedding is off. His words were a bombshell. The room exploded with questions. Mason, are you joking? What happened? A wedding is a serious matter. You can't just call it off. His parents, Charles, Sue, and Mei Zhang, shot up from their seats, their faces filled with alarm and worry. Son, what's going on? Dad, Mom, it's complicated. We'll talk later. Mason reassured them, but his mother was already on the verge of tears. But, All our relatives came from so far away, and the banquet. At that moment, the cold, mechanical voice echoed in his mind again. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Pay for the relative's meal, serve the food as planned. Reward, 100x cashback on all expenses. Option 2. Cancel everything, send the guests home. Reward, the title of Petty Man. There was no choice to be made. Mason made his selection mentally, gave his parents a reassuring look, and raised the microphone again, his voice steady and strong. Uncles, aunts, I know you all mean well. Although the wedding is off, I, Mason Sue, can't let you all come here for nothing. The food and drinks will be served as planned. Please, eat and drink to your heart's content. Consider it a meal on me. The relatives protested, saying his family was not wealthy and they couldn't let him spend more. Sean tried to help, saying Mason wasn't short on cash, but a glare from his own father quickly reminded him of a childhood disciplined by a leather belt. Mason smiled and played his trump card. Everyone, the banquet was pre-booked and paid for. If you don't eat, all this food will just be thrown away. What a waste that would be. The word waste had a magical effect on these practical, hard-working people. Hearing this, they all sat down, murmuring that they'd still give their cash gifts later to ensure the family didn't lose money. Once things settled down, Charles and May pulled Mason aside. Uncle Greg joined them and recounted everything that had happened at the Jiangzhou Grand Hotel. After hearing the story, Charles trembled with anger, while May covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face, her heart aching for her son. It was Sean's father, a famously hot-tempered man, who slapped his thigh and roared, "Bastards! I've never heard of such shameless people. Good for you for kicking them to the curb, Mason. That's satisfying." Then, all eyes turned to Mason, with the same question. "Mason, where did you get all that money? $3 million in cash, and that sports car?" "Dad, Mom, don't worry," Mason said, having already prepared his story. "The money is from a legitimate source. Your son knows what he's doing and won't do anything foolish." Charles stared at his son for a long moment before sighing. As long as it's honest money, that's all that matters. That crisis was averted. A wedding feast without a bride proceeded in a complex atmosphere. In the end, everyone ate and drank well, and on Mason's insistence, no cash gifts were accepted. As night fell and the last guest departed, Mason went with Sean to the front desk to settle the bill. "Mr. Sue, your total comes to $38,060. We'll round it down for you to an even $38,000. Mason counted out the amount from a stack of crisp new bills and placed it on the counter. The moment the transaction was complete, the system's voice sounded in his head. Ding. Option 1 detected as complete. For the expense of $38,000, you have received a 100x cashback of $3,800,000, which has been deposited into the host's bank account. Almost simultaneously, Mason's phone screen lit up with a new text message from his bank. The long string of zeros was exceptionally clear in the dim light. He transferred $500,000 to his parents, the rest marking the beginning of his new life. Jiangzhou glittered with neon lights in the dead of night. Mason and Sean parked the Porsche and took a cab to the city's most famous barbecue street. The air was thick with the smell of cumin and charcoal, a true taste of life. They ordered a table full of skewers and beer. As they were eating, Sean's face suddenly changed. "What's wrong?" Mason asked, holding a beer bottle. "Mason, a fishbone stuck in my throat." Sean's expression was pure agony. "Crap, let's go to the hospital." After some hassle, they arrived at Jiangzhou People's Hospital. The emergency room was brightly lit, the air thick with the smell of disinfectant. A doctor skillfully removed the fishbone with forceps, and Sean was instantly back to normal, ready to go back for round 2 before Mason slapped him back to his senses. As they were leaving, arm in arm down a quiet corridor, they were drawn by the sound of a heated argument. At the source of the noise stood 3 faces they had hoped to never see again. Nina's parents and her brother, Carl. "You animal. That's your sister. How could you do that to her?" Nina's father roared, slapping Carl across the face. "She ruined my dowry money and scratched me up like this." Carl lifted his shirt, revealing bloody scratches all over his body. "You hit her first. You threw a rock at her face." Mason and Sean exchanged a look of disbelief. As they listened, they heard Nina's mother say in a wheedling tone, "Honey, maybe Nina should call Mason? Ask him to pay for this. He still loves her, deep down." "Call me for what? To pay for this?" Mason's voice cut in suddenly, freezing the arguing family in place. "Mason," Nina's mother was the first to react, her face lighting up with surprise. "You? Did you know Nina was hurt and came rushing over?" "I knew it. You do still love her." Just then, the door to a nearby room opened, and a woman with her head and face wrapped in bandages, only one eye visible, stumbled out. It was Nina. Seeing Mason was like seeing a lifeline. "Mason, it's really you. Thank you. Thank you for coming," she cried hoarsely. Mason instinctively took a step back, blocking her attempt to lunge at him. "Hold it. I'm not here to see you." What happened to you?" Nina's father sighed and explained, with some embellishment, how the siblings had fought over the dowry money, how Carl had disfigured Nina with a rock, and how the doctor said it would cost $500,000 to avoid permanent scarring. Mason and Sean were left speechless, looking at Carl with a strange, sort of horrified admiration. Mason, Nina clutched his sleeve, her one visible eye filled with desperation. 500,000. That's all it takes to fix my face. Help me, and we'll get married, okay? I won't ask for a dowry this time. I'll listen to whatever you say from now on. Looking at her, Mason felt only a sense of absurdity. Then, the system's prompt sounded once more. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Let bygones be bygones and help Nina pay for her treatment. Reward, a good person card. Option 2. Refuse to pay and demand the immediate return of the dowry to prevent them from using it. Reward, Soldier King physique and skills. I choose 2, Mason thought to himself. Instantly, an indescribable heat surged up his spine and spread through his limbs. A torrent of knowledge and muscle memory, combat, stealth, reconnaissance, flooded his mind like a data stream. He felt as if a dormant beast had awakened within him. Every muscle fiber pulsed with explosive power, and his senses became sharper than ever before. He slowly raised his head, his gaze falling upon Nina's family. Playing the sympathy card won't work. His voice was calm, yet carried a chilling, undeniable authority. Now, I demand you immediately return the $200,000 dowry I gave you. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to take legal action. What? Nina looked as if she'd been struck by lightning, and shrieked. I'm in this state, and you're here to kick me while I'm down? No way. You want the money? Not a chance. Carl chimed in. Oh, you don't want to give it back. Mason raised an eyebrow. With that simple movement, an invisible, chillingly violent aura erupted from him. The temperature in the corridor seemed to drop several degrees. Nina's family, and even Sean standing beside him, felt a tremor deep in their souls. Mason's gaze was no longer that of an ordinary man. It was the look of a predator that had waded through mountains of corpses, now locking onto its prey. Carl's body went rigid. He felt as if he were frozen in a block of ancient ice, his teeth chattering uncontrollably. Mason's eyes were like 2 poisoned daggers plunged into his heart. Arg! With a terrifying scream, Carl could no longer bear the pressure. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor. A foul-smelling liquid quickly spread from beneath him. I'll ask one last time. Are you returning the dowry, or not? Mason's voice was like a whisper from the depths of hell. In the dead silence, Nina's mother suddenly shrieked. Her eyes rolled back, and she fell backward. Her husband caught her just in time, then let out a desperate, theatrical wail at the top of his lungs. Help! Assault! Someone's being attacked in the hospital. Mason and Sean were stunned. The sheer audacity of the performance left them speechless. Soon, 2 security guards armed with rubber batons arrived. Seeing the brutal scene, they immediately ordered Mason and Sean to stop and raise their walkie-talkies to call the police. Mason just shrugged and, along with Sean, calmly sat down on a nearby bench to wait. In less than 10 minutes, 3 police officers strode out of the elevator. The one in the lead was a woman. She stood tall and straight, her jet black hair neatly tucked under her police cap, revealing a strikingly handsome face. Her eyes were bright and sharp, sweeping across the scene like a hawk's, instantly bringing the chaos to a standstill. The air in the hospital corridor was thick with tension, the stark white lights making the Li family's cries seem hollow and theatrical. At the center of this chaos, a clear, calm voice cut through the noise like a surgeon's scalpel. Who's causing the disturbance? The voice was as crisp and pleasant as a songbird's, yet it held an undeniable authority. Mason looked up to see a female police officer approaching. She carried herself with a confident poise, her uniform impeccably pressed, accentuating her athletic build. Beneath her police cap was a clean, sharp-featured face, with bright eyes that seemed capable of piercing through any deception. The security guard, seeing her, immediately reported, "Officer, this man claims those 2 young men assaulted them." The officer's gaze flickered over Mason and Sean, then settled on the wailing Mr. Li and the trembling Carl on the floor. Her brow furrowed slightly. "All of you, come with us to the station." Mason stood up, meeting her gaze calmly. "Officer, I suggest you check the surveillance footage." A flicker of approval crossed the officer's eyes. She nodded, then turned and issued orders with swift efficiency. The group was escorted from the hospital and into a police car. Inside the cold interrogation room, the light was a bit harsh. Sean and the Li men went in first to give their statements. When it was Mason's turn, he entered to find the same female officer sitting behind the desk, holding his ID. "Mason Su," she read his name. "Yes. Let me introduce myself. I'm Fei Ning." She stood up and, to his surprise, extended a hand, a playful smile on her face that dispelled any tension of an interrogation. Mason shook her hand lightly, noticing its softness and cool touch. "Officer Ning, a pleasure." "All right, now that we're acquainted," Fei said, sitting back down and crossing her legs, her posture more like a curious friend than a police officer. "So tell me, did that woman in the bandages really demand an extra dowry at the wedding?" just because her brother's girlfriend's family also wanted 500,000. Mason was taken aback. This was not the conversation he was expecting. He glanced around, confirming he was, in fact, in an interrogation room. Why were they gossiping? As if reading his mind, Faye laughed and waved a hand. Don't get me wrong, I'm just curious. You only see that kind of drama in novels. Relax, I know you were set up. You don't have to be nervous. Come on, spill the details. How do you know that? Mason asked, surprised. The surveillance footage hasn't arrived yet, has it? Please, that's a minor detail, Faye dismissed with a shrug. Those two, their stories are full of holes and contradictions. It's obvious they made it up on the spot. You, on the other hand, have some seriously bad luck running into a family like that. But speaking of which, her tone shifted, her eyes becoming more inquisitive. I heard you had to borrow money for the initial dowry. How did you suddenly get so rich? Mason's heart tightened. He couldn't figure feigning out. Was she genuinely curious, or was she fishing for information? Although the system guaranteed the funds were legitimate, a part of him still felt uneasy. Seeing his silence, Faye waved her hand again. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. I didn't mean anything by it. I just have a soft spot for these zero-to-hero stories. Anyway, let's drop it. Once the footage gets here, and this is all cleared up, you want me to help you get your dowry back? You need to use certain tactics to deal with scoundrels like them. A warmth spread through Mason's chest, and his opinion of the quirky officer rose considerably. Thank you, Officer Ning. I'd appreciate that. Before long, the officer with the surveillance footage returned. After watching it, Faye's expression hardened. She walked out, slammed a file folder down on the table, and snapped at the anxious Mr. Li and Carl. Carl Li, Mr. Li, the footage is perfectly clear. From start to finish, Mason Su and Sean Gao never laid a finger on you. Do you have anything else to say? The two were terrified. Mr. Li, a simple office worker, had never been in a situation like this. His knees went weak. Officer, I was wrong. I shouldn't have falsely accused them. Humph. Are you aware that malicious slander and false accusation can land you in jail? Faye's voice was ice. Jail. The word made Mr. Li nearly collapse. He turned to Mason, his voice cracking. Mason, please, let me off the hook. It was all my fault, I apologize. Faye shot Mason a meaningful look. Mason understood. He looked at Mr. Li coldly and spoke slowly. I can let it go. Return the $200,000 dowry, and we'll pretend this never happened. I'll return it. Right now. As if granted a pardon, Mr. Li fumbled for his phone and clumsily transferred the $200,000, even adding an extra $2,000 as a gesture of goodwill. Upon receiving the money, Mason immediately transferred the original $200,000 back to his parents with a message, the dowry returned by the Li family. It was their life savings. He wouldn't touch a cent of it. Faye, who had glimpsed the transaction, commented with a slight smile. Quite the filial son, aren't you? You have to be grateful for what you have, Mason replied with a sincere smile. Hearing this, Faye's expression shifted, a different kind of light in her eyes. It was late when they finally left the police station. The cool night air was a welcome relief. Sean let out a long breath. Finally out. This has been one hell of a day. Can't be helped. When you've got the protagonist's aura, trouble just follows you. Mason joked. Mason, I told you to read fewer novels. Sean rolled his eyes. You're getting delusional. Mason laughed and clapped him on the shoulder, his expression turning serious. Sean, you wanted to open a barbecue restaurant, right? How about I invest? Before Sean could react, he continued. I'll start with $3 million. And not just barbecue. We'll do cold drinks, a buffet, Western food, all linked together to create an integrated food court. I'll cover all the costs. You provide the skills and management. All I want is 30% of the shares. $3 million? A food court? Sean was utterly stunned, his mouth agape. He knew Mason wanted to help him, but this was too generous, too real. Mason, Sean's eyes started to get misty. You're doing this to help me. That's too small a share for you. All right, cut the drama. Think bigger. Mason interrupted. It's settled. The cab's here. Let's go home and sleep. Back in his simple, rented apartment, Mason looked around the familiar yet strange little space and made a decision. It was time for a change of scenery. Just then, Sean spoke up. All right, Mason. There's a class reunion tomorrow night. Are you going? Jason Zhang is organizing it. And Elise. She asked about you in the group chat. Her. Mason's heart jolted. A name, a beautiful figure, long buried in his memory, surfaced instantly. Elise Lin. She was the light of his high school days, the deepest regret hidden in his heart. On the night of their graduation party, he had planned to confess his feelings, but he was forcefully taken away by men sent by her father. They had been separated ever since, with no contact. He had heard she went abroad. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Attend the class reunion and face the regrets of the past. Reward, charisma plus 10. Option 2. Decline to attend. Reward, $30 million. $30 million. A number that could drive anyone mad. Mason's heart pounded in his chest. Money or regret? The future or the past? An image of Elise's clear eyes flashed in his mind, followed by memories of their innocent, beautiful time together. 30 million was tempting, but some things couldn't be bought. With the system, there would be more money in the future. But that girl, if he missed this chance, it might be gone forever. I'll go, he heard himself say, his voice firm and clear. Ding. Congratulations, host, your choice is successful. Charisma plus 10. The moment he made the choice, a strange warmth flowed through him. It felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted, and he felt lighter. Beside him, Sean rubbed his eyes, a look of confusion on his face. Huh? Mason, did you suddenly get handsomer or something? The next evening, at the Jiangzhou Grand Hotel, 7th floor, private room, 888. The same place that had brought him endless humiliation just yesterday. But Mason's state of mind was completely different. When he and Sean pushed the door open, the room was already filled with people, buzzing with noise. He was catching up with an old classmate, Monkey, when the door was suddenly pushed open again. The entire room fell silent. A tall figure walked in. She wore a high-end, custom-tailored dress, her long hair like a waterfall, her skin fair as snow. Her makeup was light, yet it was enough to dim the lights in the room. It was Elise Lin. Mason felt his breath catch. The innocent girl in a school uniform from his memories slowly merged with the elegant woman before him. Elise's gaze swept across the room, and without a moment's hesitation, it landed directly on Mason. Under the stunned stares of everyone present, she walked through the crowd, straight to his side, and asked in that familiar yet distant voice, "Can I sit here?" Before he could answer, she had already sat down. Their eyes met. 1,000 words hung in the air between them, finally melting into a single phrase, "Long time no see." "Yeah," Elise said, looking at him with a gentle smile, though her eyes held a complex, unreadable emotion. 7 years, 3 months, and 17 days. She remembered the exact date. Mason's heart clenched. He was about to say something when she asked again, her voice trembling slightly. "I heard. You got married yesterday." Mason could no longer suppress his emotions. He turned, looked directly into her eyes, and said, each word clear and distinct, "There was an accident. It didn't happen. Let me formally introduce myself. Mason Su, currently single." Elise was visibly stunned, then a joyful light bloomed in her eyes. However, this private moment was shattered by a loud voice. "Hello, everyone." The class president, Jason Zhang, walked in with a greasy-looking fat man, proudly introducing the Mr. Luo beside him and announcing a special discount on apartments he had secured for them, which was met with cheers. Mason noticed that when Elise saw Mr. Luo, a look of undisguised disgust flashed in her eyes. Well, Mason," Jason finally turned his attention to him, his tone dripping with provocation. "Heard you got married yesterday? What's the matter? Too good for your old classmates to even send an invitation?" Others chimed in, and once again, Mason became the center of attention. He frowned, about to speak, but Elise suddenly stood up, coming to his defense. Jason, having been rebuffed, dropped the subject. The food and drinks arrived, and as glasses clinked, the true theme of the reunion began to unfold. "Jason, I heard you got a new car? A BMW 7 Series? Must be over $1 million, right?" a classmate asked with envy, drawing everyone's attention to Jason. In private room 888 on the 7th floor of the Jiangzhou Grand Hotel, under a massive crystal chandelier, the clinking of glasses mingled with lively chatter. The air was a mix of expensive cuisine and the heady aroma of alcohol. After 7 years, this class reunion had shed its initial awkwardness and evolved into an unspoken contest of success. The undeniable center of attention was the former class president, Jason Zhang. He leaned back in his chair, casually fiddling with a car key bearing a blue and white propeller emblem, a smug smile playing on his lips. "Huh, Jason, I heard you got a new car? Is that key for a BMW 7 Series? Must be over $1 million, a male classmate asked, successfully drawing everyone's gaze. "Oh, it's just a little thing. Just picked it up. A bit over $1.2 million out the door," Jason said nonchalantly, but the slight upturn of his lips betrayed his true feelings. "I'm so jealous. You call over $1 million a little thing? What does that make our $10,000 commuters? Tractors? Seriously, my $30,000 Audi is still on a 3-year loan. The comparison is just depressing." The flattery flowed, and Jason basked in the attention, though he feigned humility. "Well, we all have different needs. Mine is for work. I often have to drive clients to see properties, so a better car gives them confidence." As he spoke, his gaze shifted like a striking snake, locking onto Mason in the corner. "Speaking of which, Mason, everyone else has shared what they're up to. We haven't heard from you yet. You're a married man now, so what are you driving? Your career must be taking off, right?" In an instant, the room fell silent. All eyes moved from Jason's BMW key to Mason's face, filled with a mix of scrutiny and expectation. Mason sighed internally. He hadn't wanted to be the focus, just to quietly chat with Elise beside him. But trouble, it seemed, had a way of finding him. Just then, the cold voice echoed in his mind again. "Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Put Jason Zhang in his place. Reward, a premium, detached villa in Cloud Top Manor. Option 2, silently endure it. Reward, the title, a mind as broad as the ocean. A corner of Mason's mouth twitched. His minor annoyance evaporated, replaced by a flicker of anticipation. He sat up straighter and cleared his throat. Ahem, well, it's nothing much. I just got a new car, a 911. The performance is alright, but I feel like the key design is not great. As he spoke, he took out the sleek, silver key from his pocket, spun it on his fingertip, then turned to Elise beside him and winked. Don't you think so, Elise? Elise's eyes widened slightly in surprise, but she quickly composed herself. She studied the key seriously and said softly, not at all. I think the design is perfect. Simple, yet powerful. Is that so? Well, if you like it, Elise, then I guess I can learn to like it too, Mason said with a mock sigh, casually placing the key on the table. A dead silence fell over the room. Portion 911. The name landed like a heavy stone in everyone's mind, sending shockwaves through them. A supercar with a price tag exceeding $3 million, a figure most people in the room would struggle to earn in a lifetime. Jason's face turned an ugly shade, as if he'd swallowed a fly. He muttered jealously, showing off. Who knows if it's even his? But before he could finish, the door to the room opened and a waitress peeked in. When she saw Mason, her eyes lit up and she walked in excitedly. Oh, Mr. Sue, I can't believe you're here. Mason looked at her, confused. The waitress explained breathlessly. You probably don't recognize me, Mr. Sue, but I was a server at the banquet hall yesterday. I took a video of what happened at your wedding and posted it on TikTok. It's gone viral. Everyone online wants to know what happened next. Could you answer a question for me? After getting Mason's permission, the waitress took out her phone, started recording, and asked in an almost journalistic tone, Mr. Sue, when you had $3 million in cash delivered to your wedding yesterday, was that intended as a surprise for Ms. Nina Li? $3 million. Cash. Delivery. The combination of those words set off another explosion in the room. Everyone was dumbfounded, finding the story utterly unbelievable. Jason immediately asked for the waitress's TikTok handle and, along with the others, pulled up the video she had pinned to her profile. The video wasn't long, but it was a roller coaster of events. From the sudden demand for more money at the wedding, to Mason's furious rebuttal, and then the moment the box full of red bills was opened. The classmates' expressions shifted from curiosity to anger, and finally, to utter shock and envy. Damn, Sean, what did it feel like carrying $3 million? I'm so jealous. Monkey Lee nudged Sean beside him. It wasn't much, just pretty heavy, Sean said with a cool nonchalance. I thought you were just flexing, but you're the real deal. Mason, my lord, I bow to you. A guy who has $3 million in cash delivered by courier? What's a 911 to him? Pocket change. Suddenly, the sounds of praise and admiration completely drowned out Jason. His face had gone from ashen to purple. He felt like his meticulously planned show had turned into Mason's personal highlight reel. And just then, Elise, beside Mason, murmured softly, that was a very fortunate demand for more money. The two shared a smile, a silent understanding passing between them. At this tense moment, Robert Luo, the real estate general manager Jason had invited, finally spoke up. He adopted a patronizing tone, a slick smile on his face. You young people, what's there to show off about cars? They're just depreciating assets. Jason seized the lifeline. Exactly. Mr. Luo is right. The real asset is property. The population keeps growing, so housing prices will only go up. I myself just used my commission to buy a 1,800 square foot, fully furnished apartment outright. In 5 years, it'll net me at least $2 million in profit. Robert Luo nodded in satisfaction, his gaze sweeping the room with a sense of superiority. You see, that's the difference. You all spend your money on pleasure, while Jason has already built a solid personal asset. How many of you here already own your own home? His question silenced the once lively room. Most of the classmates lowered their heads in shame. Seeing the resentful looks on Sean's and Leo's faces, Robert added mockingly, it seems these two don't own property. Well, ignorance is bliss, I suppose. Mr. Luo, Mason's brow furrowed, his voice turning cold. For a general manager, you have a rather small mind. Mason, what nonsense are you spouting? Jason snapped. Mr. Luo is sharing his experience with us. But Robert waved him off, looking at Mason with amusement. It seems this young man knows a thing or two about real estate. I wonder, have you ever bought a property? If not, then your words are rather meaningless. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Reveal your property and counter Robert Luo. Reward, $30 million. Option 2. Stay low-key and back down. Reward, $5 million, plus the title, Total Wimp. A smirk formed on Mason's lips. Mr. Luo, I just said whether I buy a house or not is none of your business. I never said I didn't own one. Oh, Robert's interest was piqued, though he was sneering internally. He pressed. Then where might your property be? Don't tell me it's in Jiangzhou's most exclusive development, Cloud Top Manor? He emphasized the name, Cloud Top Manor. It was a place all local developers looked up to, developed by Elise's company, Riverfront Properties. The cheapest villa there started at $40 million. In his mind, Mason was just some new money fool who could never dream of owning property there. But Mason met his mocking gaze and nodded, his tone as casual as if he were discussing something trivial. Mr. Luo, you're truly an industry expert, very well informed. Yes, my property is indeed in Cloud Top Manor. Impossible, Jason shrieked. You're lying. Mason didn't bother arguing. He simply took out his phone and, under the skeptical and mocking gazes of the others, opened an app. Welcome to the smart cloud. A clear, pleasant female voice came from the phone. Everyone was stunned. That voice. It was Elise's. Elise leaned in, a look of astonishment on her beautiful face. Mason, that's the exclusive smart cloud app for Cloud Top Manor homeowners. I recorded the welcome message myself. You really. Before anyone could recover from their shock, a cute robot butler appeared on the screen. Master, welcome to your home. I am Smart Butler Leo, from Villa Number 1. Now presenting a panoramic view of your villa. As it spoke, the phone screen displayed a live feed of a garden, a swimming pool, and a magnificent, futuristic villa. It's really Villa Number 1. Elise covered her mouth. That was one of the 3 premium villas, valued at $80 million. I don't believe it. Sean grabbed the phone, shouting, show me the living room. The phone's display didn't change. Mason took the phone back and said softly, Leo, show the living room. As you wish, master. The image instantly switched. A massive, high-tech living room appeared on screen. The walls were screens, the sofa a work of art. Every detail screamed ultimate luxury. The furnishings in that room alone were likely worth millions. You could hear a pin drop in the room. Everyone stared blankly at the small phone screen, as if gazing upon a world they could never reach. Just then, a soft chime sounded. A bank notification popped up on Mason's phone screen. Your savings account ending in XXXX has received a deposit of RMB 30,000,000,000. That long string of zeros was like a merciless sledgehammer, crashing down on everyone's heart, utterly shattering their last shred of doubt and dignity. Life, why was it so cruel? The $30 million transaction alert was like a silent bomb detonating in room 888. That long string of zeros seemed to burn itself into everyone's retinas. The air grew thick, the only sounds being labored breaths and the frantic thumping of hearts. Jason Zhang clutched his chest. It ached, not from a physical ailment, but from the agony of having his pride systematically crushed. The BMW 7 Series he had worked years for seemed like a child's toy next to someone's pocket money. Mason, I seriously suspect you planned this whole show. Sean and Leo Li leaned in, giving Mason a look that said, you magnificent bastard, breaking the suffocating silence. Purely coincidental, Mason said with a shrug, a look of mock distress on his face. Good thing it came when it did. I was almost out of cash. See, not counting that 30 million, I was down to my last 3 million or so. That statement was a critical hit, striking the soul of every person in the room. Several classmates turned pale and could no longer remain seated. The reunion, meant to be a stage for showcasing achievements, had become an unbearable ordeal now that one person's brilliance was bright enough to blind everyone else. Well, I have something to take care of at home, so I'll be going. Right? I just remembered I have the night shift. I've got to run. People scrambled for clumsy excuses, rising to leave as if staying a second longer would only amplify their own insignificance. In less than 2 minutes, the lively room was empty, leaving only Mason, Elise, Sean, Leo, and the grim-faced Robert Luo and Jason Zhang. Mason had no intention of letting Robert off the hook. He held his phone up to Robert's face, the futuristic villa still streaming live. So, Mr. Luo, what do you think? Is this property up to your standards? Maybe you could do me a favor and give me an estimate? See how much it might appreciate in 5 years. Robert's cheek muscles twitched violently. He forced a smile that was uglier than a grimace. You're joking, Mr. Su. A premium villa in Cloud Top Manor. A humble real estate manager like myself wouldn't dare to speculate. Oh, well, forget it then, Mason said, pulling his phone back. Not like I plan on selling it anyway. A profit of a few million here or there doesn't make much difference. If I stop living there, I could always just use it to raise birds or something. Raise birds? Robert felt a metallic taste in his mouth, a surge of blood rushing to his throat. He nearly coughed it up. An $80 million mansion, and you want to use it to raise birds? For God's sake, have some decency. Just then, Robert took a deep breath. The fake smile vanished, replaced by a cold, undisguised pressure. He turned to Elise, his voice low and firm. All right, Ms. Lin, the irrelevant people are gone. It's time we talked business. Elise's expression turned cold as well. Mr. Luo, if you have something to discuss, please have your people contact my office. Elise, you know what I mean, Robert said, his tone aggressive. That piece of land by the suburban airport. Without my signature, your riverfront properties can't break ground. I'm giving you one last chance. Agree to my terms, and the project is yours. If not, we can just let it sit. You disgust me. Elise's voice was filled with revulsion. I don't care, Robert sneered. This is just business. And Mason, he turned to Mason, his eyes filled with a potent warning. I admit you have money, but money can't solve every problem in this world. I advise you not to get yourself into trouble. So that was it. Prosperity Holdings held the deed to a piece of land where a new airport was planned. Riverfront Properties had secured the development rights, but all documents required the signature of the project head, Robert Luo. And Robert was using this power to make a disgusting demand of Elise. Elise leaned close to Mason's ear and, in a voice only he could hear, whispered with humiliation, he wants me to sleep with him. Mason's eyes instantly turned as cold as blades. A toad lusting after a swan. Let's go. Elise tugged on Mason's sleeve. She had already decided to abandon the project and didn't want Mason getting involved. The four of them stood up to leave, but Jason Zhang moved first, pulling open the door to the room. Outside, four burly men in black suits were waiting. They entered silently, blocking the exit. Jason, you bastard. Sean and Leo roared, grabbing nearby chairs. Still living in your school days. Jason scoffed. In this world, profit is all that matters. Mason and Elise continued to chat casually, as if the threat before them didn't exist. This attitude infuriated Robert. Do it. Cripple the three boys. Tie up the woman. The four thugs moved. One of them reached a massive hand toward Mason's shoulder. Sean and Leo swung their chairs, but the other two men easily caught them and tossed them aside. The hand landed on Mason's shoulder. But the instant the thug tried to apply pressure, he felt as if he had grabbed a red-hot branding iron. He looked down in shock and met a pair of cold, emotionless, almost feral eyes. Get your filthy hand off me. Mason's voice was soft, but laced with ice. In the next second, the thug felt his wrist caught in an iron grip, an irresistible, terrifying force twisting it. A sickening crack of bone echoed in the silent room, followed immediately by a piercing scream. Number 3. Another thug roared, throwing a powerful straight punch at Mason's face. Mason shifted his body slightly, easily dodging the blow. Then, his own fist shot out at a strange angle, landing with lightning speed and perfect precision on the man's throat. There was a dull thud. The thug's eyes filled with utter terror as he fell backward, stiff as a board, a strangled gurgling sound coming from his throat as he fought for air. It's nothing, just cutting off his air for a bit. He won't die, Mason explained casually, then blurred into motion, appearing before the third thug. Before the man could even react, a powerful blow struck his abdomen, doubling him over. It was followed by a vicious elbow to his temple, and the man's world went black as he crumpled to the floor. In the blink of an eye, 3 trained fighters were incapacitated. The entire sequence was dizzyingly fast, brutally efficient. Mason shook out his hands, and his gaze fell on the last thug, who was frozen in fear. He was taken down with a single, swift strike. Robert and Jason were completely stunned. What was this man? A monster? Elise's beautiful eyes shone with a strange light. She realized she had never truly known the man standing before her. You stay away, Jason stammered, backing away in terror. Mason, I concede. Let's call this matter settled, shall we? Robert tried to remain calm, but his eyes betrayed him. They were not the eyes of a simple businessman. They held the hardened look of a desperate man, one who had seen blood. In Mason's mind, the system's prompt sounded with urgency. Ding. System alert. Robert Luo, original name Ronan Liu. 13 years ago, he committed a familicide, murdering a family of 3 in a single night. He later underwent plastic surgery, changed his identity, and has been a fugitive ever since. A colossal wave of fury erupted from the depths of Mason's being. Without another moment of hesitation, he lunged forward, sending the fleeing Jason Zhang flying with a single punch. Then, he turned to face the true demon. The sound of bones snapping echoed in the room. With chilling ruthlessness, Mason broke both of Ronan Liu's arms. The agonizing pain ripped an inhuman scream from his throat. Mason. Elise's voice trembled. Mason didn't stop. 2 more stomps, and Ronan's kneecaps were shattered, his legs twisted at unnatural angles. Only then did he straighten up, as if he had just completed a mundane chore. He calmly took out his phone and dialed Fei Ning's number. Jiangzhou Grand Hotel, 7th floor, room 888. I found a murderer. Ronan Liu. Fei, on the other end of the line, was clearly shocked by the name. After he hung up, a dead silence filled the room. Ronan Liu, or Robert Luo, stared at Mason as if he were seeing a ghost. No. Impossible. How could you know? How could you possibly know? The hand of justice is long, and it finds all who hide. Mason's voice was as cold as ice. About 15 minutes later, Fei Ning arrived with her team. When she saw the carnage in the room, she was speechless. After collecting evidence and running an emergency DNA comparison, a shocking confirmation came from the station an hour later. The portly real estate manager was indeed the A-list fugitive, Ronan Liu, who had been on the run for 13 years. Elise, Sean, and Leo stared at Mason as if he were a god. Feeling their intense gazes, Mason felt a bit awkward and blurted out the first thing that came to mind. Actually, my ancestors were fortune tellers. I can see 500 years into the past and 500 years into the future. Really? Mason, do me next. Tell me when I'm going to get a girlfriend. Sean asked, leaning in excitedly. Mason cleared his throat awkwardly and patted his friend on the shoulder, saying with great solemnity, Ahem. Sean, only the destined can glimpse the secrets of fate. You and I, we are not so destined. Your future is unclear to me. Inside the main hall of the Jiangzhou City Police Department, the pale fluorescent lights hummed, and the air smelled of disinfectant and faint gunpowder. The recent events replayed in the minds of Elise, Sean, and Leo like a surreal film. They looked at Mason with a mixture of awe, confusion, and even a hint of fear. Ding. Congratulations, host. Option completed. You have been awarded a 30% stake in Prosperity Holdings and full authority over the Pear Garden project. Relevant documents have been placed in the host's villa. The system's notification brightened Mason's mood instantly. A 30% stake in a multi-billion-dollar company was worth over $3 billion. Catching that murderer had been well worth it. Mason, Fei Ning said, finishing her initial report. She crossed her arms, studying him with an amused smile. Do you have some kind of bad luck charm? It's only been a few days, and you've already reported to my station twice. Mason shrugged helplessly. I can't help it, but at least I'm always on the right side of things. Smooth talker. Fei shot him a playful glance, a charming expression appearing on her usually stern face. Seriously, though, you all were a huge help this time. Ronan Liu was an A-list fugitive for 13 years. There's a $100,000 reward and a commendation banner for his capture. Send someone to pick them up tomorrow. All right, I'll have them come by. Mason nodded, but noticed Fei's gaze growing sharper, as if trying to see right through him. Fei's gaze growing sharper, as if trying to see right through him. Mason, I'm curious. Were you ever in the military? The way you took down those men. That wasn't some street fighting brawl. There was a killer instinct in your moves, the kind you only see on a battlefield. Her eyes glinted with a light Mason recognized all too well, a fighter's spirit. A sense of unease settled in his stomach. Never served. Had some relatives in the army. I just picked up a few things, he said evasively. Is that so? Fei clearly didn't believe him. She cracked her knuckles, the sound sharp in the quiet hall, her eyes burning with a challenge. Mason, how about a friendly spar? He knew it was coming. Mason pressed his forehead, a headache blooming. The other officers in the hall seemed to take it as a signal, casting gleeful, pitying glances his way and whispering amongst themselves. It's over. Captain Ning's got the itch again. This kid is doomed. Last time, Captain Zhang sparred with her and got thrown 5 meters with a shoulder toss. He was bedridden for 3 days. As Mason hesitated, the system's cold prompt sounded once more. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Accept Fei Ning's challenge. Reward. The national martial art, Baji Quan. Option 2. Firmly refuse. Reward. The title, Cowardly Turtle. Hey, Mason, what's with the hesitation? Are you afraid I'm going to eat you alive? Fei called from the doorway, urging him on. Fine. Mason stood up and walked towards her. Better to test out this martial art than be labeled a cowardly turtle. On the training ground outside the station, the night air was cool. Fei had taken off her police jacket, revealing a tight black tank top that showed off her toned, powerful physique. She casually adopted a starting stance, her entire demeanor changing. She was like a coiled leopard, every muscle taut, leaving no apparent weakness. While Tai Chi brings peace to the world, Baji Quan conquers it. As the system confirmed his choice, a vast torrent of memories flooded Mason's mind. It was as if he had lived another man's entire life, starting from the horse stance, practicing every punch and kick through blistering heat and freezing cold, until the essence of Baji Quan was seared into his very soul. The style's fierce, direct, and overwhelmingly powerful intent instantly merged with his own Soldier King's killer instinct. You can go first, Fei said, her voice low. Ladies first, Mason replied, standing casually. He was relaxed, yet seemed to blend perfectly with the night, exuding a natural pressure that even Fei could feel. All right, then I won't be polite. Before the words left her mouth, Fei shot forward like an arrow. About a meter from Mason, she leaped, her body arcing through the air as she delivered a swift whip kick aimed at his head, the motion so fast it tore through the air with a whistle. Mason's eyes narrowed. With a slight shift of his feet, he raised an arm, perfectly blocking the kick. A dull thud echoed as Fei's full-force blow failed to move him an inch. Her first strike blocked, Fei used the momentum to land, her attacks flowing like a relentless tide. Low sweeps, side kicks, elbow strikes, a rain of blows aimed at Mason's vital points. But his defense was like an impenetrable net, neutralizing every attack with perfect timing. Their figures blurred together, the sound of fists and feet colliding filling the air, leaving the onlookers stunned. He's so strong. Mason is actually holding his own against Captain Ning. Fei was even more shocked. It felt like all her attacks were hitting a slippery, unmovable wall. He seemed to anticipate her every move, deflecting them with ease. She knew he was only defending, yet he was completely in control of the fight's rhythm. After another flurry of attacks, Faye retreated, her chest heaving slightly, a sheen of sweat on her forehead. Mason, you're good. Very good. Now, I'm getting serious. If you can't handle it, just say so. She settled into a classic stance, a sharp, focused energy emanating from her. Xingyi Quan. So, it's a national martial art, Mason realized. No wonder her explosive power was so formidable. In that case, he would fight fire with fire. The wild, battlefield aura around him receded, replaced by a quiet, far more dangerous stillness, like a dormant volcano about to erupt. Watch out, Faye shouted, her footwork intricate as she launched a punch from a difficult angle. This time, Mason didn't block. He stepped forward, his presence shifting dramatically. Baji, Iron Mountain strike. He sank his waist, planted his feet, and rotated his hips, channeling power through his entire body. He became a collapsing mountain, crashing towards Faye with unstoppable force. Danger! Alarm bells screamed in Faye's mind. She crossed her arms in front of her chest. A thunderous boom, like a small explosion, erupted as the force of the impact sent her flying backward, the shockwaves rattling her insides. Having landed a hit, Mason didn't stop. He stuck to her like a shadow, closing the distance instantly. Heart-piercing elbow. His elbow strike was short, brutal, and aimed directly at her heart with absolute resolve. As she flew backward, Faye's face paled, and she cried out, "You bastard, are you trying to kill me?" The wind from the strike whipped at her hair. At the last possible moment, Mason's body froze, the elbow that could shatter stone stopping less than 10 centimeters from her chest. Faye gasped for breath, her heart still pounding with fear. Mason relaxed his stance. Seeing the mix of anger and shock in her eyes, he scratched his head awkwardly. "Sorry, got a little carried away." Faye shot him a death glare, but managed to compose herself. She cupped her fist in a traditional martial arts salute, her expression serious. Xingyi, Fei Ning. Mason, surprised, returned the salute. Baji, Mason Su. So it really is the long-lost Baji Quan. You bastard. The fire in Fei's eyes reignited. He had used one of Baji Quan's killing moves on her. It was practically attempted murder. Sensing trouble, Mason quickly grabbed the stunned Elise and their friends, and made a hasty retreat from the police station. Not far from the station, 2 Mercedes business vans were waiting. Elise's bodyguards hurried over, their faces full of apology. "Ms. Lin, we're sorry It's not your fault." Elise waved them off. She turned to Mason, her eyes shimmering. "To Cloud Top Manor? I'll give you a ride." "Sure," Mason said, getting into the van without hesitation. In front of Villa Number 1 at Cloud Top Manor, just as Mason was about to get out, Elise leaned in and planted a soft, quick kiss on his cheek. Mason felt a jolt run through him. He turned to see her blushing face and averted eyes, a wicked smile playing on his lips. "An eye for an eye. Shouldn't you let me kiss you back? In your dreams." "I'm leaving," Elise huffed, urging the driver to go. Mason chuckled as he got out, watching the van drive away before turning to the magnificent villa gate. The sensor lights came on, and the smart butler Leo's gentle voice sounded. "Master, welcome home." The next morning, Mason, dressed in new clothes, drove his Porsche 911 and arrived promptly at the Riverfront Properties headquarters. Elise, in a sharp business suit and carrying a file, walked out and slid into the passenger seat. "You're right on time. A beautiful woman awaits. I wouldn't dare be late." "All right, stop with the sweet talk. Let's go." To Prosperity Holdings. The Porsche's engine let out a low growl and sped off, leaving a crowd of stunned Riverfront employees in its wake. The Porsche 911 moved smoothly through the streets of Jiangzhou. Soft music played inside, but the atmosphere was anything but relaxed. Elise studied Mason's profile as he drove, a familiar outline that now seemed to hide countless secrets she couldn't fathom. What had happened to him during those 7 years of silence? "Mason," she finally broke the silence, her brow furrowed slightly. "What have you been doing all these years? Why do I feel like I can't figure you out at all anymore?" From the man who casually talked about raising birds in an $80 million mansion, to the martial arts expert who could hold his own against an elite police officer, to his current mysterious status, each identity was a stark contrast to the brilliant but poor high school boy she remembered. Mason chuckled lightly, his tone easy. "Nothing much. I'm just an ordinary office worker. You can check. Just 2 days ago I was being publicly humiliated at my own wedding because I couldn't come up with a $300,000 dowry." He was telling the truth, yet he had perfectly sidestepped every crucial question. Elise shook her head with a sigh, knowing further questioning would be fruitless. She let out a long breath, a bright smile returning to her face, her tone laced with a playful pout that 7 years hadn't erased. "Fine, I won't pry into your secrets anymore. But from now on, you're not allowed to avoid me again. It's been 7 years, you heartbreaker." "Okay." Mason's reply was simple but firm. Without the system, he might have let his insecurities push him away again. But now, He possessed the confidence to match anything the world had to offer. Hearing his promise, Elise beamed like a child who'd been given her favorite candy, and she instinctively linked her arm with his. Soon, the car arrived at the Prosperity Holdings headquarters. Elise, familiar with the building, led Mason to a vice general manager's office. Ms. Lin, please come in. A young man in his early 30s named Henry Chin stood up enthusiastically upon seeing Elise. But when his eyes landed on Mason, standing intimately close to her, a flicker of displeasure crossed his face. My boyfriend, he came with me. Elise's introduction was brief and to the point. She then got straight to business. Mr. Chun, I assume you've heard about what happened with Robert Luo, who is in charge of the Pear Garden project now. Ms. Lin, you've come to the right person. Henry Chin laughed, a hint of self-satisfaction in his voice. After Mr. Luo's incident, I've been following up on this project. Who do you think it will end up with? The implication was clear. In his mind, and likely in the minds of everyone at the company, it was only a matter of time before he took over the Pear Garden project, and perhaps even Robert Luo's position. Oh, so it seems the project isn't in your hands yet. Elise's voice remained flat. In that case, we have nothing more to discuss. Hey, Ms. Lin, don't be so hasty. Henry quickly stopped her. I'm certain the project will be mine. Why don't we find a place for coffee, sort out the details, and as soon as the paperwork comes through, I'll sign it immediately. No delays. Mason had been watching silently. He saw the same greed and lecherousness in Henry's eyes that he had seen in Robert's. He stopped Elise from turning away and spoke slowly. Let's go, Elise. This project isn't his, and it never will be. Friend, you can't just say things like that. Henry's face darkened. You're not even part of Prosperity. What gives you the right to make such a claim? I say it won't be, so it won't be. Mason's tone was calm, but held an unshakable authority. What arrogance! Henry was thoroughly angered. He turned to Elise and sneered. Ms. Lin, I don't appreciate your attitude. When the project lands in my lap in a little while, our discussion might not be so pleasant. I don't care. Riverfront can drop the project if we have to. Elise's stance was just as firm. As they were about to leave, the system's prompt sounded in Mason's mind. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Teach Henry Chin a small lesson. Reward, $10 million. Option 2. Reveal your identity and forgive Henry Chin. Reward, Henry Chin's favorability plus 50. Mason sneered internally, choosing the first option without hesitation. He took Elise's hand and walked back towards the desk. What? Scared now, kid? Here to apologize? Henry saw them return and assumed Mason had backed down, a triumphant look spreading across his face. However, Mason walked up to him and, without any warning, raised his hand and slapped him across the face. Crack. The sharp sound echoed in the quiet office, even reaching the ears of the employees eavesdropping outside. Everyone froze. You bastard, you're dead. Henry roared, recovering from the shock. Crack. Another resounding slap landed precisely on his other cheek. I don't like the way you look at my girlfriend. Mason's voice was ice. Who do you think you are? A glorified errand boy of a vice president, and you dare to covet the general manager's position? You dare to think the Pear Garden project will fall into your lap? Ms. Lin. Henry, humiliated and furious, yelled at Elise. I'm telling you right now, Riverfront can forget about the Pear Garden project. That's a promise from me, Henry Chun. Elise, give me the materials you prepared. Mason ignored his outburst, turning to Elise instead. Though confused, Elise obediently handed him the file. Mason took it, flipped through it casually, picked up a pen from the desk, and signed his name with a flourish on the last page. Mason, you. Elise was stunned. Ha ha ha. Henry burst out laughing. Kid, do you think Prosperity is your family's company? You think your signature means anything? Prosperity might not be my family's. Mason handed the signed document back to Elise, his gaze cold as he looked at Henry, but a third of it is mine. Henry Chin, is it? As of now, you're fired. If you leave quietly, you'll get this month's salary. If you insist on being stubborn, the company will conduct a full audit of your personal finances. Then, you might not get a single penny, and you might even have to pay us back. Henry's laughter died in his throat. He stared at Mason, his mind reeling with disbelief. Mason ignored him, took out his phone, and made a call. Chairman Sue. A crisp, professional female voice answered on the other end. I'm in Vice Manager Henry Chin's office. I want the company to immediately conduct a full audit of his personal finances. Also, I need you to come here right away. Hanging up, Mason took Elise's hand and calmly sat down. Henry wanted to argue, but a seed of doubt had been planted. Before long, the rapid click-clack of high heels approached, and a stunning, professional woman with a commanding presence strode into the office. As Assistant Sue, Henry's heart sank when he saw her. The woman was Mason's personal assistant, Susan. She ignored Henry and walked straight to Mason, bowing respectfully. Chairman Sue, my apologies. I wasn't aware you had arrived. Chairman Sue. Chairman. The title was like a lightning bolt, striking both Henry and Elise at the same time. It's fine. Mason handed the file to Susan. This is the paperwork for the Pear Garden project. You'll handle the follow-up with Ms. Lin. Of course, Chairman Su. Susan took the file and turned to the petrified Elise, extending a hand with a smile. Ms. Lin, it's a pleasure. I'm Susan, Chairman Su's personal assistant. With Susan's explanation, Elise finally understood. Just last night, Mason had acquired a 30% stake in Prosperity in a lightning-fast move and had designated himself to oversee the Pear Garden project. All of this, for her. Mason. Elise turned, her beautiful eyes glistening with unshed tears, her affection for him overflowing. In the next second, she threw caution to the wind, leaned in, and pressed her soft lips against his. It was a brief touch, but when she pulled away, she whispered, tears in her eyes, "Thank you." Mason's heart fluttered. He reached out and gently wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. "Don't cry. It's okay." Meanwhile, Henry Chun, terrified out of his wits, scrambled to his knees before Mason, crying and begging for forgiveness. Mason simply gave Susan a cold glance. She understood immediately and called security to drag the pathetic man away. With the matter settled, Mason had lunch with Elise in the company cafeteria. Afterwards, Elise went with Susan to handle the project details. Mason left the Prosperity building alone and headed to the back parking lot to get his car. Just as he pulled the car door open, a woman's scream pierced the air. Help! My purse! Robbery!" Mason looked up to see a young girl crying out in panic, while on the back of a speeding electric scooter, a man was triumphantly waving a pink handbag. Ding! A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Act heroically and be rewarded with a residence at the Flower Creek Pavilion. Option 2. Pretend you saw nothing, mind your own business, and receive a -20 favorability rating from Jiangzhou University's campus belle, Khloe Fan. The scooter was heading straight for him. A smirk touched Mason's lips as he made his choice. In the next instant, his body shot forward like an arrow into the middle of the road. Amidst the robber's panicked curses, he lunged, launching himself into the air, and delivered a powerful sidekick that slammed into the scooter. The afternoon sun was warm and gentle. Mason walked out of the Prosperity Holdings building alone, feeling lighter than ever. A business storm had been resolved with a thunderous finality he hadn't anticipated. He headed to the parking lot, the Porsche key in his hand glinting in the sunlight. Just as he opened the car door, a piercing scream shattered the street's tranquility. My bag. Robbery. Mason froze. He looked up to see a plainly dressed young woman standing in panic. Ahead of her, an electric scooter was speeding away. On the back, a man in a helmet was triumphantly waving a pink handbag. They were heading straight for him. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Act heroically and be rewarded with a residence at the Flower Creek Pavilion. Option 2. Pretend you saw nothing, mind your own business. A cold smile touched Mason's lips. He didn't even bother with the second option. The scooter's motor whined as it approached. Without hesitation, he launched himself from the parking spot like a predator, directly into the path of the vehicle. Shit! Get out of the way! The two on the scooter cursed in anger and surprise. Mason ignored their profanity. He bent his knees, coiled his body, and sprang forward like a cannonball. In midair, he extended his leg in a powerful sidekick, the motion tearing through the air, and slammed it into the scooter's frame. With a loud metallic clang, the speeding vehicle was struck as if by an invisible sledgehammer. It spun out of control, sending both riders tumbling across the asphalt for several meters. The pink handbag flew through the air and landed right at Mason's feet. He stepped forward, picked up the bag, and then looked at the two robbers as they struggled to their feet. They were both wearing helmets, obscuring their faces, but their glares were full of venom and rage. "Sir, thank you so much." The girl who had lost her bag finally caught up, panting, her voice still trembling with fear. Mason handed her the bag and finally got a good look at the campus belle the system had mentioned. She was indeed beautiful, not in a stunning, glamorous way, but with a fresh, natural purity. She had delicate eyebrows, large eyes, and fair skin, with only light makeup. Her casual clothes couldn't hide her unique charm. She took the bag, thanking him profusely. "You bastard. You dare to mess with us? You tired of living?" The two robbers staggered over, cursing. Mason's eyes turned cold. He was about to step forward when the girl bravely shouted, "Stop. Don't you dare run. I've already called the police." At the word police, the robbers' bravado deflated. They exchanged a look, and one of them pointed at Mason, spitting out a threat. "Kid, you just wait." Then they righted their bent scooter and sped away. "Phew, we're safe." The girl sighed in relief, clutching her chest. "A girl shouldn't walk alone in secluded places like this," Mason advised, preparing to leave. "Sir, please wait," the girl called out, smiling shyly. "My name is Khloe Fan. I'm about to graduate from Jiangzhou University. Thank you so much for today. To show my gratitude, I'd like to treat you to a meal. Would that be okay?" "I'm Mason. A meal isn't necessary. It was nothing," Mason declined. "Then, how about a late-night snack?" Khloe persisted, mustering her courage. She wasn't sure why she was so insistent. Maybe it was simple gratitude, or maybe his spectacular kick had sent not just the scooter, but also himself, flying straight into her heart. Seeing the sincerity in her eyes, Mason thought for a moment and finally nodded. They exchanged contact information, and he drove away. In the evening, after dropping Elise back at her company, Mason received a message from Khloe, asking to meet at a food street near the university. When he pulled up in his Porsche 911, he immediately saw her waving from the crowd, a cheerful, short-haired girl by her side. "Wow, Khloe, is this your hero? He's so handsome. No wonder you were shameless enough to ask him out," the short-haired girl, Lin Zhang, said, her eyes sparkling as she looked at Mason. Khloe blushed and playfully swatted her friend's arm before introducing them. The three of them chatted and laughed as they walked into the bustling food street and found a table at the busiest-looking barbecue stall. The charcoal fire was blazing, and the air was filled with the tantalizing aroma of cumin and chili. However, they didn't notice two pairs of venomous eyes watching them from a nearby corner. It was the two robbers from earlier, Spike and Ox. "Damn, what a small world." Spike gritted his teeth. "Let's go. We'll get Rooster. We're gonna make this kid pay for today." As the night deepened, the food street grew even more crowded. The trio was happily chatting, waiting for their food. Suddenly, with a loud crash, a beer bottle was smashed on their table, sending glass and beer everywhere. Khloe and Lin screamed in terror. Mason frowned and slowly looked up. About a dozen rough-looking thugs had surrounded their table. The leader was a burly man with a dragon tattoo on his neck and a menacing face. "Kid, remember us?" Spike stepped forward, covering his face with his hand to mimic his helmeted appearance from earlier. "Oh, it's you." Mason's voice was perfectly calm. "What do you want?" "We'll call the police," Lin shouted, trying to sound brave. In response, a thug kicked her phone off the table, shattering it on the ground. He then sneered at her. "Go ahead. I'd like to see you try." The leader, the so-called Rooster, planted a foot on the table and looked down at Mason with a cruel glint in his eyes. "Kid, ever heard the saying, interfering with someone's livelihood is like murdering their parents? So, what are you going to do about today?" Before Mason could answer, Rooster pointed a finger at Khloe and grinned lewdly. 100,000. Plus, this girl spends the night with me. Then we'll call it even. "You bastard, what did you say?" Lin trembled with rage. "Oh, and you." Rooster's gaze shifted to Lin. "You can come too. I've got plenty of brothers. I'm sure one of them will take you." "Mason, don't agree." Khloe stood up, her voice firm. "This has nothing to do with you. Little sister, around here, we take the money, and we take the girls too." Rooster cruelly shattered her last hope. Ding. An option has been triggered. Option 1. Defeat all the thugs. Reward, a secret barbecue recipe. Mason made his choice. He slowly looked up at Spike, whose hand was still resting cockily on his shoulder. "Get your filthy hand off me." His voice was soft, but it seemed to drop the temperature around them. "What did you say, kid?" Spike sneered. Mason didn't waste any more words. His hand shot out, grabbing Spike's wrist with lightning speed. Then he squeezed. Crack. The sickening sound of bone breaking was accompanied by Spike's pig-like squeal. "Bastard! Get him! Kill him!" Rooster roared. The dozen thugs surged forward, wielding beer bottles and chairs like a pack of wolves. Khloe and Lin screamed, huddling together in fear. But what happened next silenced not only their screams, but the chatter of the entire food street. Mason, still holding the wailing Spike with one hand, moved like a phantom in the confined space. The bottles and chairs aimed at him all met empty air. And after every dodge, a lightning-fast kick would follow. Thump! A thug was kicked in the chest and flew back like a broken kite, crashing through several tables before landing unconscious. Thump! Another was kicked in the stomach, doubling over as he flew backward, curling into a ball on the ground, unable to get up. The entire sequence was fluid, violent, and brutally beautiful. In just a few seconds, the dozen menacing thugs were all lying on the ground, moaning in pain. The only one left standing was Spike, still dangling from Mason's hand, his screams the only sound in the now silent food street. The next day, the sun shone brightly. Mason finished clearing out his old apartment, moving a few sentimental items to his vast, almost empty villa at Cloudtop Manor. Just as he was about to call Elise for lunch, a video call popped up on his phone. It was Khloe. "Mason, have you eaten yet?" Her voice on the other end was tinged with a delicate shyness. "Just about to." "What's up?" Mason already knew, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Great, me neither. Let's eat together." Khloe's voice was full of excitement. "Last night's treat was ruined. Can you give me another chance today?" "Sure. Where are you?" "I'll pick you up." 15 minutes later, the Porsche 911 pulled up smoothly at the entrance of Jiangzhou University. By the roadside, Khloe, in a pale yellow dress, looked like a bright, swaying sunflower. She had clearly taken care with her appearance today, her light makeup enhancing her youthful, pure charm. "You look really pretty today," Mason complimented her sincerely. A blush crept up Khloe's cheeks as she nervously settled into the passenger seat. It was her first time in such a high-end sports car, and she didn't know where to put her hands and feet. "You don't mind going to a simple diner, do you?" she asked cautiously. "I can't afford to take you to a fancy restaurant." Don't be silly. Mason smiled, chatting with her as he drove. I grew up in the countryside too, just got a bit lucky recently. It's just food, doesn't matter where we eat it. His words immediately bridged the distance between them, and Khloe relaxed, chattering away about interesting things at school. However, neither of them noticed a young man behind them, staring at the departing Porsche with a venomous glare before hailing a taxi and following them. The car stopped in front of a place called Just a Diner, a spot Mason used to frequent during his school days. They ordered a table full of food and chatted amiably, the atmosphere pleasant and relaxed. When Khloe learned that Mason was an alumnus of her university, she became even more friendly. Khloe, why were you walking down that small road alone the other day? Were you looking for a job? Mason asked casually, taking a bite of food. Yeah, Khloe sighed. My major is architectural design, and all the big companies like Prosperity and Riverfront are in that area. I had just dropped off my resume at a few smaller firms and was going to try my luck at Prosperity. I took a shortcut. If it weren't for you, I can't imagine what would have happened. She shook her head in disappointment. A few of the smaller companies have called me for an interview, but I haven't heard back from Prosperity, the one I really want to work for. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Help Khloe get a job at Prosperity Holdings. Reward, favorability, plus 20. Option 2. Pretend you didn't hear. No reward. Mason silently complained to the system. What was with this girl? Every choice seemed to involve her favorability. But he said gently, how about I help you out? I happen to have a friend who works at Prosperity. It might improve your chances. Really? That would be great. Thank you, Mason. Khloe's eyes widened in surprise. Mason smiled and took out his phone, dialing his personal assistant, Susan. Chairman Su. She answered instantly. Yes, could you check for a resume from a Jiangzhou University graduate named Khloe Fan? A few seconds of typing could be heard before Susan reported. Chairman Su, I found her. Architectural design major, excellent grades. That's her. Arrange a position for her, as you see fit. She's a friend of mine. Of course, Chairman Su. Hanging up, Mason met Khloe's expectant gaze and smiled. Should be all set. As soon as he said it, Khloe's phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. She answered, puzzled. Hello, is this Miss Khloe Fan? This is the HR manager from Prosperity Holdings. We've reviewed your resume and find you to be an exceptional talent. Would you be available for an interview tomorrow? What? Khloe gasped, looking at Mason in disbelief. He was smiling at her. She quickly composed herself and excitedly accepted the interview. After hanging up, she couldn't contain her excitement and grabbed Mason's hand. Mason, thank you. Thank you so much. That was so fast. How did you do it? Feeling the soft touch of her hand, Mason was secretly pleased but remained modest. My friend has a bit of influence at Prosperity. It was nothing. But before he could finish, an angry roar from beside them shattered the warm atmosphere. Who are you? Get your filthy hands off her. A young man rushed over, his face contorted in anger. He grabbed Khloe's wrist and forcefully pulled her hand away from Mason's. Ron, you're hurting me. Khloe cried out. Who are you? Don't you know she has a boyfriend? The young man, Ron Luo, ignored Khloe, glaring at Mason with hostile eyes. Ron, what are you talking about? I don't have a boyfriend. Khloe quickly explained. We're just friends. Friends. Ron's expression twisted into a sneer. He roared. You think I'm the disgusting one? We've been together since we were 8, for 15 years, and you still won't admit I'm your boyfriend? Khloe, I see right through you. You just think I'm poor, you look down on me. You're just a materialistic woman, no different from those gold diggers. The moment you see a rich guy, you can't wait to throw yourself at him. His words grew more vicious, each one a sharp knife stabbing at Khloe's heart. Stop it, Khloe flared up. Ron, you can say what you want about me, but don't you dare insult Mason. Oh, so now you're defending him, and you still say you're just friends. Ron, I'm telling you for the last time, I've only ever seen you as a brother. Khloe's voice grew weary and disappointed. A brother? Ha! Ron laughed, enraged. How ridiculous. Did I ask them to scrimp and save to put me through school? Khloe, I'm telling you, from this moment on, I, Ron Luo, have nothing to do with you or your family. You ungrateful dog. Mason, who had been silent until now, finally spoke, his voice cold. He slowly stood up, an intimidating aura emanating from him that made the arrogant Ron feel a pang of fear. What did you say? I said, you are worse than a dog. Mason's voice was flat, but each word was a dagger. Her parents raised you for 15 years, not for you to repay them with money, but with your life. A backstabber like you is an insult to this world. With that, Mason ignored him and took out his phone, making 2 calls in succession to Elise and Susan. Elise, do something for me. A university student named Ron Luo. Cancel his job offer at Riverfront and inform all our partner construction firms in Jiangzhou that whoever hires him will have their partnership terminated. Susan, Ron Luo is to be blacklisted from Prosperity for life. Inform all partner companies of the same. The 2 calls were short and authoritative. Ron listened, stunned at first, then a scornful smile appeared on his face. How could he believe that a man eating at a diner with Khloe could have such power? But just as he was about to mock him, his phone rang. The caller ID read, Riverfront Properties, Director Li. He answered, trying to remain calm, but a cold voice came from the other end. Ron Luo, I'm sorry, but your offer has been rescinded. Riverfront will not be hiring you. How? How can this be? Ron's face turned pale. In disbelief, he dialed another company that had already sent him an offer. Ron Luo? Who the hell is that? Get lost. Who hired you? An impatient voice shouted before the line went dead. Ron stood frozen, his phone slipping from his grasp and shattering on the ground, just like his once bright future. Time seemed to freeze in the diner. Ron stood motionless, the cold, merciless rejections from his phone calls echoing in his ears. He dialed number after number, only to receive the same response. Every time he stated his name, he was met with either curses or a dial tone. Finally, he gave up. The phone slipped from his hand and shattered on the ground, much like his once promising future. He slowly raised his head, staring at Mason as if he were a monster. In that moment, he finally understood. The man before him, dressed in ordinary clothes and eating at a simple diner, wielded a terrifying power he couldn't comprehend. 2 phone calls had been enough to completely pulverize the dreams he had worked years to build. Who are you? Ron's voice was dry and trembling. You don't have the right to know. Mason's reply was as cold as ice. He stood up, took Khloe's hand, who had stopped crying and was now looking at him in shock, and turned to leave. Ding. Option completed. Khloe fans' favorability increased by 30 points. Current favorability, 70. Reaching the level of adoration. Am I that kind of person? Mason rolled his eyes at the system's cheeky notification. Wait. Ron's voice came from behind. He stumbled after them and fell to his knees in front of Mason. Mr. Sue, I was wrong. I was blind. Please, I beg you, be the bigger person and forgive me this once. Mason didn't even bother to turn around, continuing to walk away with Khloe. Seeing this, Ron grabbed Khloe's ankle, begging and crying, even starting to kowtow. Khloe, your brother was wrong. Please help me. I'm begging you. Khloe froze. Faced with the person she had grown up with for 15 years, she felt a pang of pity. But Mason's cold voice cut through the air again. Let go. Ron flinched as if struck by lightning and instinctively released his grip. Mason led Khloe away without a backward glance, leaving Ron alone, a lifeless husk slumped on the cold ground. In the car, Khloe told Mason everything about her and Ron. After listening, Mason was even more certain that his decision had been the right one. He dropped Khloe off at the university entrance. Before she got out, she gathered her courage and asked, Mason, will I see you again? Seeing the innocent hope in her eyes, Mason smiled. You have my number and my contact info, don't you? A radiant smile, bright as sunshine, bloomed on Khloe's face. In the evening, shortly after Mason returned to his villa, the smart butler's voice announced, Master, you have a visitor. He didn't need to guess. It was Elise. She walked in with a sweet smile and immediately opened her arms, melting into his embrace. She stood on her toes and gave him a light peck on the cheek. Just as Mason was about to return the favor, Elise pulled away, her brow furrowed like a kitten whose tail had been stepped on. Aha, Mason. What happened today? Were you out having a meal with another girl behind my back? Mason was stumped, fumbling for an explanation. If he said it was nothing, the system's favorability 70 notification would be a lie. If he admitted it, he was dead. Humph. Cheater. Seeing his hesitation confirmed her suspicions, and she playfully scolded him. Elise, listen to me. Mason was about to explain when Elise launched her attack, her soft lips pressing against his. Mason's eyes widened, then slowly closed as he gave in to the sweet assault. But just as he was about to deepen the kiss, Elise pushed him away, her face flushed, her breath slightly ragged. Humph, that's your punishment. Mason was dumbfounded. What kind of punishment was that? It was pure torture. I'm going for a swim, Elise announced, turning and running towards the pool outside. Wait for me. I haven't tried my own pool yet. Mason immediately chased after her. The pool shimmered under the moonlight. Mason and Elise splashed and played in the water, their laughter echoing in the night. But no matter how he tried, Elise maintained her final line of defense, much to his disappointment. An hour later, they emerged from the pool, dripping wet. Mason looked utterly defeated. Elise, that's not fair. This is just cruel. Well, that's what you get for going on a date with another girl behind my back. Elise huffed. Seeing his dejected look, she softened and leaned against him. All right, don't be mad. Actually, even if there was something between you and that girl, I wouldn't be angry. Mason was taken aback. What do you mean? You're that open-minded. Of course, Elise's eyes took on a mysterious glint. You practitioners of national martial arts have already transcended the mundane. How could worldly rules bind you? Am I right? Mason was startled. So she knew about that. He had no choice but to nod in agreement. But Elise's expression turned serious. You are not allowed to be promiscuous, and you are not allowed to abandon me. I've waited for you for 7 whole years, after all. Mason's heart was deeply touched. He said nothing, simply pulling her closer into his embrace. Meanwhile, at the Jiangzhou City Police Department, Fei Ning was staring blankly into space. She felt like something was missing today. Suddenly, Mason's face flashed in her mind. That's it. Mason didn't report to the station today, she blurted out, standing up instinctively. The officers on duty shot her strange looks. Fei blushed and snapped at them before quickly walking out of the office and making a call. Dad, I have something to tell you. Please stay calm. Speak, a stern, brief voice replied. Fei took a deep breath. A Baji Quan practitioner has appeared. I fought him. The line went dead. Fei rolled her eyes. There he goes again. Must have crushed another phone. Far away in the capital, on a massive private training stage, a middle-aged man in a martial arts uniform was holding a severely deformed phone. Beside him, a handsome young man in a similar uniform looked at him, confused. Dad, was that little sister? The middle-aged man nodded, tossed the ruined phone aside, and said flatly, call her back. When the call connected, Fei briefly recounted her encounter with Mason. When she mentioned how Mason's heart-piercing elbow had nearly killed her, the young man on the other end exploded. What? Which bastard? Little sis, you just wait. I'm coming over there to skin him alive. A dull thud was followed by the young man's indignant roar. Dad, you sneak attack me again. His name is Mason Su. Clean record, unknown master, Fei added. After hanging up, the young man, Felix Ning, had a cold glint in his eyes. He immediately made another call, his voice commanding. I'm going to Jiangzhou now. Also, run a check on someone named Mason Su. I want all his information. At dawn, a private jet landed at Jiangzhou Airport. Felix Ning, surrounded by bodyguards in black suits, got into a Mercedes G-Wagon. In the car, he reviewed the file on Mason that had been delivered overnight. 20-odd years of an unremarkable life. Then 4 days ago, a sudden change at his wedding, $3 million in cash delivered. Tempering his heart in the mortal world? Just as expected from a Baji Quan practitioner, Felix sneered, tossing the file aside. To Cloud Top Manor, he ordered. 20 minutes later, the G-Wagon pulled up in front of Villa Number 1. Felix and a calm, middle-aged man walked towards the villa's entrance. Mason, who had just woken up and was wandering around his living room in his pajamas, heard the smart butler's voice. Master, you have visitors. The living room's large screen showed Felix and the other man. Mason, confused by the unexpected guests, walked towards the door, asking casually, who is it? The property management. Felix and the old man, who were trying to project an air of mastery, nearly stumbled, their composure shattering. Felix's mouth twitched as he suppressed his anger and cupped his fist in a salute. Xingyi, Felix Ning. Xingyi? Felix Ning. Mason finally registered the name and looked at him closely. What's your relationship with Fei Ning? In the courtyard of Villa Number 1 at Cloud Top Manor, the early morning light was faint, and the air held the cool scent of dew. Two men with powerful auras faced each other from a distance, the atmosphere so tense that even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I hear you almost hurt my sister, Felix Ning said, his hands behind his back. His voice was calm, but his eyes were as sharp as a hawk's. My sincerest apologies, Mason spread his hands, a look of pure innocence on his face. I didn't realize I was that strong. Felix felt a vain throb in his temple, the masterly demeanor he had carefully constructed nearly shattering on the spot. He squeezed the words out from between his teeth. Kid, make your move. Why? Mason looked utterly baffled. It was early in the morning, and they were going to fight before breakfast? Because she is my sister. Felix's gaze turned instantly cold. No one is allowed to bully her. Confirmed. This guy was a textbook overprotective brother. Mason was speechless, but the system's prompt sounded in his mind. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Defeat Felix Ning. Reward. An upgrade to your Baji Quan mastery. Option 2. Kill Felix Ning. Reward. Mastery of Dark Gene. Mason chose the former without hesitation. What kind of grudge would lead to killing? He looked at the chattering Felix, a thick, powerful aura slowly rising from him. Finally made up your mind. A cold smile touched Felix's lips. He sank into the opening stance of Xingyi Quan, his entire body like a pine tree rooted to the earth, as immovable as a mountain. The next second, Mason moved. He was as fast as lightning, a gust of wind in his wake, closing the distance to Felix in an instant. He threw a seemingly ordinary straight punch, simple and unadorned, yet containing astonishing explosive power. Crack! The sound of fist meeting palm echoed in the air, a faint shockwave rippling outwards. Felix's expression hardened as he retreated rapidly to dissipate the terrifying force. But Mason stuck to him like a shadow, pressing his advantage with a fierce whip kick. Impressive Baji. Felix praised silently. He didn't dodge. Instead, his body sank at an incredible angle, and he met the kick with one of his own. Bang! The two legs collided with a dull thud, as if the air itself had exploded. They both retreated, then charged at each other again. Felix clenched his fists, let out a roar, and threw a Xingyi crushing fist, imbued with an unstoppable momentum. Faced with this explosive move, Mason didn't dare be careless. He met the punch with one of his own. Bang! This time, when their fists collided, Mason only took 3 steps back, while Felix was pushed back a dozen steps before he could stabilize himself, his arm numb. What's with that look? Felix read the "Is that all you've got?" in Mason's eyes and felt utterly humiliated. He roared and charged again. I'm done playing with you, Mason thought to himself. He took a step forward, his presence like a landslide, his momentum like a tsunami. Iron Mountain strike. In that instant, Felix felt as if he were facing not a person, but a mountain hurtling towards him at high speed. Alarm bells screamed in his mind. Years of combat experience told him he could not block this move head-on. But Mason was too fast. He had no time to dodge. He could only throw both fists forward, gathering all his strength into a shingy cannon fist to meet the attack. Boom. There was no contest. Felix's body was sent flying backward as if hit by a speeding train, arcing through the air before crashing to the ground several meters away. He had just scrambled to his feet when Mason's figure appeared before him like a ghost, once again delivering that unreasonably powerful Iron Mountain strike. At that critical moment, the elderly man who had been standing by silently finally moved. He was as fast as lightning, appearing behind Felix in an instant and catching his flying body with a single, gentle press of his hand. Still want to fight? Mason stopped, looking at the horrified Felix. I bullied your sister. Do you still have a problem with that? Felix's face turned beet red, and he nearly coughed up blood. It was infuriating. He had come all the way from the capital to stand up for his sister, only to be utterly defeated in 2 moves. Ding. Congratulations, host. Option completed. Your Baji Quan mastery has been upgraded. A vast wave of memories and mystical power surged through Mason's body. He felt his understanding of Baji Quan, and the power within him, ascend to a new level. Dark Jean. Just then, Fei Ning, dressed in casual clothes, strolled in through the villa gate. She glanced at her disheveled brother and mocked him mercilessly. That was a pretty ugly loss, wasn't it? Ignoring her brother's murderous glare, Fei walked straight up to Mason, apologized for her brother's behavior, and then, her expression turning serious, revealed the true purpose of her visit. It turned out that in the capital, there were 3 major martial arts families: the Ning family, the Chen family of Tai Chi, and the Lu family of Bagua. Every 3 years, they held a competition. The winner would receive 20% of the other 2 families' profits for the next 3 years. This tradition had lasted for centuries. So, you want me to fight for the Ning family? Mason finally understood. That's right. It's also my father's wish, Fei nodded. The competition is open to anyone under 30, not just family members. If you help us, the Ning family is willing to offer you 1 billion in cash as a reward. 1 billion. Mason's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't some virtual asset. It was real, hard cash. All right. I'll consider it a favor for a friend, Mason said, feigning composure. With business settled, they headed to the Jiangzhou Grand Hotel for lunch. During the meal, Mason's phone rang. It was Khloe. He answered with a smile, assuming she was calling to share the good news of a successful interview. But what he heard was her desperate, tear-choked cry for help. Sob? Mason. Ron kidnapped my parents. He said if he doesn't see me in 30 minutes, he's going to. Sob. What? How dare he? Mason shot up from his seat, a cold glint in his eyes. That ungrateful backstabber had gone completely insane. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Go to Creek Source Village and rescue Khloe's parents. Mason made his choice without hesitation. Khloe, don't worry. Where are you now? I'm coming to get you. I'm at Prosperity Holdings. Stay there. Mason hung up, gave a quick explanation to the Nings, and bolted out of the room like a gust of wind. In the parking lot, the Porsche 911's engine roared to life with a furious snarl. With a screech of tires, it executed a perfect, daring drift and shot out into traffic, disappearing in an instant. A few minutes later, in front of the Prosperity Holdings building, Mason slammed on the brakes, stopping perfectly beside the tear-stricken Khloe. Get in. Fasten your seatbelt. The silver sports car shot off again like an arrow, speeding towards Creek Source Village, over 30 kilometers away. They had less than 20 minutes. Creek Source Village, a peaceful and simple place, was now shrouded in an air of madness and despair. In the humble living room of Khloe's house, her parents were tied back-to-back with coarse ropes, their lips cracked, their faces pale. Opposite them sat Ron Luo, the foster son they had raised as their own. His face was dark, and in his hand, he held a gleaming kitchen knife. Ron, what happened to you? Khloe's mother, Helen Li, asked weakly, ignoring her own discomfort. Shut up. Ron shot up, roaring like a madman. You're not my mother. My mother died 15 years ago. You animal. We worked so hard to raise you for 15 years, to send you to school, and this is how you repay us. Khloe's father, Frank Fan, yelled in grief and anger. Shut your mouth. Ron's eyes flashed with malice, and he kicked Frank hard in the face. Frank cried out, spitting blood as he and his wife fell to the floor. "Frank!" Helen shrieked, but Ron silenced her with a sharp slap. He raised the knife, his face a mask of menace, and the poor woman could only let out choked sobs. Ron looked at the tragic scene, his eyes gleaming with a twisted excitement. He stepped on Frank's body and roared, "This is all your precious daughter's fault. Why couldn't she just choose me? Was it because I'm poor? 15 years. I gave her the best of everything. Whatever she wanted, I worked my fingers to the bone to get for her. But what did she do? She ended up in the cars of those filthy rich men. She even ruined the job I was about to get. My entire life is ruined because of her." He grew more frantic, grinding his foot into Frank's face until it was a bloody mess. Just then, the screech of tires sounded outside. "Dad! Mom!" Khloe rushed in. When she saw the hellish scene in the living room, her legs gave out, and she nearly collapsed. Mason caught her just in time. When he looked up and saw what Ron was doing, a towering rage erupted from within him. "You animal!" he roared. Ron, startled, quickly reacted. He pulled the couple up, the knife pressed against Frank's neck. "Mason, you take one more step, and I'll kill this old bastard right now." At that moment, Fei Ning and the others arrived. As a trained police officer, she immediately knew not to reveal her identity, to avoid agitating the unstable Ron. But Ron, blinded by jealousy and hatred, saw right through their expensive clothes and yelled for them to get out. "Ron, let my dad go!" Khloe cried hysterically. "Let him go? Fine." Ron's face twisted into a crazed smile. "You make Mason kneel. He kneels, I let them go." "No, Mason, don't. This has nothing to do with you." Khloe immediately protested. "Don't worry." Mason patted her hand reassuringly, then turned to Ron, his eyes calm. "You have my word." And with that, his knees began to bend. "Huh, Mason, so what if you're rich? So what if you're powerful in Jiangzhou? In the end, you still have to kneel before me." Ron cackled madly as he watched Mason slowly sink to his knees. But no one noticed the silver Porsche key clutched tightly in Mason's lowered hand. Just as his knees were about to touch the ground, everything changed. With a flick of his wrist, the exquisite car key became a silver streak, whistling through the air and striking Ron's knife-wielding hand with perfect accuracy. "Arg!" Ron screamed in pain, the knife clattering to the floor. "Die!" In that same instant, Mason's voice, as cold as ancient ice, exploded in Ron's ear. His seemingly kneeling figure erupted like a compressed spring. Heart-piercing elbow, Mason channeled the dark gene within him, unleashing its full power. The elbow strike, carrying a wind that tore through the air, shot towards Ron's heart with unstoppable force. This blow would have been fatal. "Don't kill him." At the last second, Faye's shout cut through the air, a bucket of cold water on Mason's rage. He instantly came to his senses and pulled back 90% of his power and all of the dark gene. Even so, the remaining force sent Ron flying, slamming him into the wall and making him cough up a mouthful of blood. Mason wasn't finished. He appeared before him in a flash, placed his hands on Ron's shoulders, and squeezed. Crack! Crack! Two sickening crunches of bone, accompanied by Ron's agonized screams, signaled that his shoulder blades had been completely shattered. It all happened in the blink of an eye. By the time Faye rushed in and cut the ropes, Ron was a crumpled heap on the floor, completely incapacitated. Soon, the sirens of an ambulance and police cars filled the air. Khloe went with her parents in the ambulance. After Faye and the others had taken Ron away, Mason locked up the house and drove to the hospital. At the hospital, Mason paid the $20,000 medical bill for Khloe's parents. While waiting for the test results, Khloe's mother, Helen, held Mason's hand and said emotionally, "Mason, thank you so much for today. Khloe is so lucky to have a boyfriend like you. It's a blessing from many lifetimes." Mason was taken aback, then saw Khloe's blushing face and understood. He didn't correct her. Instead, he went along with it. "Auntie, the pleasure is all mine. Khloe is a rare and wonderful girl." The exchange made Khloe's heart feel as if it were filled with honey. In front of her parents, they were the perfect couple. In the evening, Mason stayed and chatted with the family until Faye arrived to take their statements. Then he got up to leave. Outside the hospital, Khloe walked him out. As they were about to part, she gathered her courage, leaned in, and gave him a quick kiss on the lips before turning and fleeing like a startled deer. Mason stood there, stunned. He touched his lips and chuckled. "What is with all the sneak attacks lately? I have to be the one to make the first move next time." The next day, just as Mason was leaving the hospital, he got a call from Sean. "Where are you, Mason?" "Just left the hospital." "What's up?" "What? Hospital?" "Mason, you don't have some special rich person's disease, do you? I heard you wealthy guys get lost." Mason cut him off, a dozen black lines forming on his forehead. "Just tell me what you want." "Hee, just come to the little restaurant next to the food court. I'll tell you when you get here." Mason hung up and drove to the restaurant. Sean, Leo Li, and Leo's girlfriend were waiting for him. They all stood up when they saw him. It seemed there was a new development with the food court. Morning sunlight streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows of the Cloud Top Manor Villa, casting dappled patterns on the floor. Mason woke from a deep sleep to an empty and quiet house. Sean and Leo, in a considerate effort to give him and Elise some privacy, had moved out late last night. He was savoring the rare tranquility when Sean's call came through. "Mason, where are you?" Sean's voice was a mix of excitement and exhaustion. "Just woke up. What's up?" "The food court. We're a little tight on funds." Mason understood immediately. Renting the 3-story building, plus renovations, design, and marketing, $3 million was indeed a tight budget. He was about to transfer more money when he heard Leo's hesitant voice on the other end. "Mason, I need to borrow some money from you." When Mason arrived at the small restaurant next to the food court, Sean, Leo, and Leo's girlfriend, Jasmine Zhao, were already there. Jasmine was a cheerful girl who greeted Mason with a playful tease. Well, Mason, long time no see. I hear you've struck it rich." "Don't listen to them. It's just a little something," Mason said modestly, then got straight to the point. "Monkey, what's going on? Are you getting engaged?" Leo, an orphan who had worked his way through college, looked troubled for the first time when the topic of marriage came up. He said, with a lack of confidence, "Mason, Jasmine's mom. She wants me to buy a car worth around $200,000, a $100,000 dowry, and an apartment of at least 1,000 square feet. I need to borrow $1 million from you." Before Mason could speak, Jasmine jumped in, glaring at Leo. "Leo, what are you doing? We agreed to borrow $50,000. My mom is just being unreasonable. How can you ask Mason for so much money? Does he have a money tree?" She turned to Mason and explained hastily. "Mason, don't listen to him. I have $50,000 in savings, and with his, we have enough for the dowry. We can get a $10,000 car and an 800 square foot apartment. We'll pay the down payment and then pay off the mortgage together. It's no problem." Mason looked at the sensible young woman and felt a wave of admiration. Leo was incredibly lucky to have found such a wonderful girl. But Leo just hung his head and mumbled, "Jasmine, I just want to give you the best I can." His simple words melted Jasmine's heart. She took his hand and said softly, "Being with you is the best." All right. Get a room, you two." Sean, watching from the side, roared, "Have you no consideration for us single guys?" Mason smiled. He waved his hand, interrupting the couple's tender moment, his expression becoming serious. "Monkey, are Sean and I your brothers?" Leo was taken aback, then nodded firmly. "Good." Mason stood up, his voice steady and strong. "You've been on your own your whole life. Today, as your older brother, I'll take care of your engagement. Sean and I will handle it. Any objections?" Before Leo could react, Sean had jumped up, a benevolent, fatherly smile on his face. "You heard him, son. Listen to your dad." Mason didn't give them time to fool around. He called a ride, and the four of them headed straight to the auto mall, their destination, the BMW dealership. The showroom was bright, the floors polished to a mirror shine, the air filled with the new car smell of leather and metal. A saleswoman greeted them with a smile. 7 Series. "Do you have any in stock?" Mason asked directly. She led them to a row of imposing BMW 7 Series. Mason pointed to the latest night sky edition in the middle. "This one, how much?" "Sir, you have excellent taste." The saleswoman's eyes lit up as she launched into her professional pitch. "This is a limited edition model. The base price is $1.4 million, and it's about $1.6 million out the door. Do you like it?" Mason asked the stunned Leo. "I like it, but, Mason, it's too expensive." "As long as you like it," Mason said, taking his bank card from his pocket. "We'll pay in full." His decisiveness stunned the saleswoman. "Yes, sir, you mean, in full?" "Of course." Sean snatched the card and thrust it into her hand. "Hurry up." While Leo and Jasmine were still in a state of shock, Mason left the dealership. He had a more important weapon to prepare for this proposal. At Jiangzhou Times Square, the city's most luxurious shopping center, Mason first went to a Vacheron Constantin boutique and, with the respectful assistance of the staff, selected a classic timepiece worth $370,000. Next, he went to a high-end jewelry store and bought a pair of exquisite, translucent green jade bracelets for Jasmine's mother, worth $450,000. Finally, he bought a suitcase, withdrew $1 million in cash from the bank, and neatly packed the red bills, the watch box, and the jewelry box inside. When he returned to the auto mall in his Porsche 911, Leo and Sean were excitedly test-driving the brand-new BMW. With the car secured, next came the apartment. "Mason, why are we at the Prosperity headquarters? Shouldn't we be at a sales office?" Sean asked, confused, as they sat in the car, looking at the towering office building. Mason didn't explain. He just made a call. Soon, his personal assistant, Susan, the stunning and capable professional, hurried out to meet them. "Chairman Sue, how may I assist you?" Her respectful address was like a thunderclap to Sean, Leo, and Jasmine. 3 mouths dropped open in unison as they stared at Mason in disbelief. "My brother is getting engaged and needs a wedding apartment. What do you recommend?" Mason's tone was as casual as if he were discussing the weather. Susan understood immediately. After a moment on her tablet, she turned the screen towards them. "Chairman Sue, the penthouse duplex at Flower Creek Pavilion. 2,400 square feet, with a panoramic view of the man-made lake and a private elevator. Perfect for newlyweds. We'll take it, Mason decided after a quick glance. Use the internal price and charge it to my account. Of course, Chairman Sue. The internal price is $3.8 million. While Leo and Jasmine were still in a daze, being led away by Susan to handle the paperwork, Sean finally asked Mason the question that had been burning in his mind. Brother, what else? Are you hiding from me? Nothing. I'm just an ordinary guy. Get lost. She called you Chairman Sue. This multi-billion-dollar company, it's yours? Sean's eyes were wide with disbelief. Not mine. I just own a 30% stake. Holy crap, Sean exclaimed, then sidled up to him with a fawning expression. Brother, honestly, I don't want to work so hard anymore. Get lost. With all the arrangements made, the two luxury cars, one carrying the happy couple in their future, the other carrying a life-changing fortune, headed to Jasmine's home in the Tiana neighborhood. Jasmine's mother, Carol Chun, opened the door. The moment she saw Leo, her brow furrowed in disapproval. Well, little Li is here too. Have you met my requirements? Carol, what are you saying? Jasmine's father, Kevin Zhao, welcomed them warmly. In the living room, Carol continued to make snide remarks about Leo's lack of prospects. Just as the atmosphere was about to turn frigid, Leo took a deep breath, stood up, and said with great solemnity, Uncle, Auntie, I've bought the car and the apartment, and I've prepared the dowry. What? Carol and Kevin were both shocked. Mom, Jasmine couldn't hold back any longer and proudly announced. The car is a BMW 7 Series, 1.6 million, paid in full. The apartment is the penthouse duplex at Flower Creek Pavilion, 2,400 square feet, and even at the internal price, it was $3.8 million. Carol was completely stunned. She pinched her thigh hard, the sharp pain confirming she wasn't dreaming. Just then, Mason stood up and gave Sean a look. Sean brought the heavy suitcase over and, in front of everyone, snapped it open. In that instant, the living room seemed to be illuminated by a dazzling red glow. A suitcase full of neatly stacked $100 bills lay there, exuding an intoxicating charm. Mason took out the Vacheron Constantine watch and the jade bracelets and handed them to the dumbfounded Kevin and Carol. Uncle, Auntie, a small gift for our first meeting. Also, he gestured to the suitcase of money. This is the dowry. $1 million. It's not much, but it proves that Leo is capable of taking care of Jasmine for the rest of her life. Oh, this is wonderful. Carol's face bloomed into a radiant smile. She took Leo's hand, as affectionate as if he were her own son. Little Li, I was wrong before. Come over anytime, just call your mom in advance, and I'll cook for you. With some nudging from his friends, Leo finally blushed and managed to say, Okay, Mom. Ding. Congratulations, host. Option completed. Total expenditure, $22 million. With a 10x cashback, you have received $72.2 million, which has been transferred to your bank account. Hearing the prompt in his mind, Mason smiled. A day spent lavishing money on his brother, and he had made a net profit of over $60 million. Life was good. The next day, Mason slept in until the sun was high in the sky. Having bid farewell to the 9-to-5 grind, he was finally living the dream, waking up whenever he wanted and having more money than he could count. He was enjoying the lazy morning when Elise's call came through. Hey, sleepyhead, are you up yet? Her cheerful voice came through the phone. Just woke up. I never realized how lazy you were. Back in high school, you used to wake up at 6 to memorize vocabulary. Did you just stop pretending once you got rich? Mason chuckled, taking the opportunity to flirt. Of course, all I'm missing now is a beautiful woman in my arms. Interested? My bed is huge, and it gets lonely sleeping by myself. Pervert. Elise blushed and playfully scolded him. Stop it. Come pick me up at the sales office of the Citiflora residence. It's one of Riverfront's properties. We'll go get lunch. As you wish, my queen. Half an hour later, Mason's Porsche 911 pulled up smoothly in front of the Citiflora residence sales office. It was a new mid-range development by Riverfront Properties, featuring fully furnished, move-in ready units, so there was a steady stream of potential buyers. Inside the sales hall, a saleswoman named Vivian Liu was impatiently checking her watch. She had dealt with 3 groups of clients all morning, talking until her throat was dry, without a single deposit. It was almost closing time, and her new boyfriend, Carl Li, was waiting to take her out for crap. Just then, Mason walked in. Vivian's eyes lit up for a moment, then dimmed when she saw his ordinary casual clothes. She frowned. Another poor guy? Better not waste my time, she prayed silently. Unfortunately, her prayers went unanswered. Mason walked straight towards her, planning to ask for Elise's office. Before he could speak, Vivian cut him off impatiently. We're about to close. Don't bother me. If you can't afford a place, don't waste your time looking. I don't have time for you. Mason's brow furrowed. What was this woman's problem? He decided not to argue and turned to leave, but then he heard her muttering contemptuously behind him. Some people have no shame. Dressed in cheap clothes and coming to Citiflora. Do you even belong here? Mason stopped. He turned around slowly, his gaze calm. How do you know I can't afford it? Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Put Vivian Liu in her place. Reward, a Lamborghini Veneno. Option 2. Don't engage further. Reward, the title, Magnanimous. A Lamborghini Veneno. One of only 3 in the world, a legendary supercar whose value had skyrocketed to nearly 100 million. Mason's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he chose the first option. Hey you. Vivian scoffed, pointing to the model of the cheapest building on the display. See that? Our cheapest unit, 800 square feet, for a total of 216,000. You, in your cheap clothes, can you afford that? Don't waste my time. 216,000 isn't that expensive. Mason shook his head, contemplating the best way to humiliate her. Just then, a familiar voice came from the entrance. Vivian, what's taking so long? Mason smiled. Perfect timing. The newcomer was none other than his former brother-in-law, Carl Li. Some broke loser is wasting my time, Vivian said, glancing dismissively at Mason. Carl walked over, not even looking at Mason, and said impatiently, Dude, if you can't afford it, don't waste our time. My girlfriend wants to go eat crab. Well, if it isn't Carl Li. Mason turned slowly, a playful look on his face. What makes you think I can't even afford a $200,000 apartment here? When Carl saw Mason's face, he froze as if struck by lightning. Mason, what are you doing here? The one and only. Carl, you know this loser? Vivian asked, curious. Tell me, what's his monthly salary? Let's calculate how many years it would take him to afford a place here. Carl's face turned green. He silently cursed the oblivious woman 1,000 times. He tried to pull her away, but she stubbornly refused, even threatening to break up with him. Sigh. Carl finally relented under his girlfriend's pressure and said the words that made him lose all face. Vivian, he's the one who was supposed to marry my sister. Vivian was stunned for a moment. Then, as if remembering something, she took out her phone and pulled up the video that had gone viral on Jiangzhou's TikTok. The wedding, the 3 million in cash, the delivery box. When she matched the man in the video with Mason, her face turned deathly pale. He's the one. The madman who had 3 million delivered by courier, she mumbled, her legs feeling weak. The fool, it turned out, was her. Stay there. Mason's cold voice stopped them as they tried to slip away. Can I afford a place here or not? Am I still a loser? Why yes, you can afford it. And no, you're not. Vivian stammered, her voice on the verge of tears. Ding. Congratulations, host. Option completed. You have received the Lamborghini Veneno. Then we're done here, Mason said, having achieved his goal. But just then, Elise walked out of her office. Seeing Mason, she pouted. You came and didn't even call me. Her affectionate tone was another blow to Vivian. Mason briefly explained what had happened, and Elise's expression turned cold. She looked at the terrified Vivian and said simply, You're fired. Vivian was devastated. She grabbed Carl like a lifeline. Carl, please help me. You know him, right? Carl reluctantly stepped forward, only to be shut down by Mason's retort. 500,000 for a dowry to marry this? You'd be better off using it to fix your sister's face. All hope was lost. Vivian unleashed her fury on Carl. You useless piece of trash. Get lost. I never want to see you again, she shrieked, kicking and stomping him with her high heels. And Carl, the man who had once dared to smash a rock in his own sister's face, was now like a pathetic dog, groveling on the floor, clinging to Vivian's leg, and sobbing. Vivian, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I can't live without you. His utter debasement was a new low, drawing a crowd of onlookers, leaving Mason and Elise speechless. Let's go. This is disgusting, Elise said, shaking her head. Mason started the car and left the scene of the farce. They went to a famous seafood restaurant in Jiangzhou, the 100 Flavors Pavilion, ready to enjoy a sweet lunch together. Meanwhile, back at the Citiflora sales office, a stunning red Ferrari roared away. In the car, a young man in sunglasses listened to a report from his beautiful assistant. Young Master Wan Ms. Lin went to the 100 Flavors Pavilion with a man. Get in the car, the young man said, his voice cold. The Ferrari shot off, heading aggressively towards the restaurant. Chapter 15. The Ferrari streaked through the streets like a dazzling red comet, drawing gasps of admiration from onlookers. But inside the private room at the 100 Flavors Pavilion, Mason and Elise's world consisted only of each other. Elise had shed her usual powerful businesswoman persona and transformed into a gentle, doting partner, constantly putting food on Mason's plate while eating very little herself, her beautiful eyes fixed on him. Pervert. Elise blushed and playfully chided Mason, feeling Mason's slightly invasive gaze wander over her. Into this warm and sweet atmosphere, an uninvited guest intruded. The door was pushed open by a stunning, professional woman, the same assistant from the Ferrari. She glanced at Mason with a hint of disdain before turning to Elise and extending a hand formally. Ms. Lin, a pleasure. Mara Ma, from Wanlong Properties. What is it? Elise's expression turned instantly cold, and and she made no move to shake her hand. Mara, unfazed, gracefully withdrew her hand. Her tone was flat, but commanding. Our young master one has arrived in Jiangzhou and would like to see you. I don't have time. Elise's reply was curt. Young Master One says that for every day he doesn't see you, Riverfront Properties' plan to enter the capital's market will be delayed by a day. Mara laid out her terms, her words dripping with threat. I will be following you, Ms. Lin, until you have time. Those are young Master One's orders. Elise's face paled. She bit her lip and fell silent. Mason saw Elise's distress, and a fire ignited within Mason. This Mara woman, she looked presentable enough, but her methods were as persistent and annoying as a fly. Seeing Elise's discomfort only fueled Mason's anger. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Stop Mara from harassing Elise. Reward. Wanlong Properties stock will hit its daily limit down today. Option 2. Take Elise away and avoid Mara. Reward. $50 million. Mason chose the first option without hesitation. $50 million was tempting, but making the people who bullied his woman pay was far more satisfying. Mason stood up lazily, a mocking smile on his lips. Hey Mara, is it? You're not bad looking. Why are you so shameless? Mara frowned and shot Mason a cold look. Who are you? You have no right to speak here. And who are you to speak here? Mason's voice turned icy, a tangible killing intent emanating from his eyes. It was the chilling aura of a soldier king, forged in the crucible of life and death. Mara's heart seized, a terrifying fear washing over her. She looked at the ordinarily dressed man before her and felt as if she were being stared down by an ancient beast. Even breathing became difficult. Mara instinctively took a step back, her voice trembling. What? What do you want? I'm young Master One's personal assistant. Mason took a step forward, the invisible pressure intensifying, weighing down on Mara like a mountain. Take a guess. Mara stumbled back 3 steps, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. She hastily stammered, Ms. Lin, I hope you'll reconsider, then fled the suffocating room. Ding. Congratulations, host. Option completed. Wanlong Properties stock will hit its daily limit down today. Elise, what's going on? Mason's demeanor softened as he asked with concern. Elise didn't answer. Instead, she stood up and wrapped her arms around Mason, her body trembling slightly. Mason didn't press Elise, just gently patting her back in silent comfort. After a long while, still in his embrace, Elise finally spoke, her voice laced with a deep weariness, and told Mason about her history with the Quan family of the capital and the spoiled heir, Victor Quan. For the sake of her family's interests, for Riverfront Properties to successfully expand into the capital, her father and the entire Lin family had tacitly agreed to use her as a bargaining chip. This was for a marriage alliance with a man she despised. For years, Elise had fought back, working tirelessly to prove to her family that she was not a commodity to be traded. But today, Victor's arrival had made all Elise's efforts seem futile. Listening to Elise's story, Mason's heart turned cold. He held her tighter, his voice low and firm. Elise, you've been through so much. From now on, you're not alone. I'll face this with you. Wanlong Properties, worth 200 billion, you say? Heh. Then let's start by making 2 billion of that disappear today. They dare to bully my woman? They will pay a heavy price. A light rekindled in Elise's eyes. She suddenly pulled back, stood on her toes, and gave Mason a firm kiss on the lips, then jumped away, her face flushed. Who's your woman? We haven't even made it official yet. What's a face? Can you eat it? Mason pulled Elise back into his arms with a wicked grin. Let's go to my place and make it official. But just as Mason was about to succeed, the door to the room opened at the most inopportune moment. A waiter, carrying a tray of food, saw the intimate scene and stammered an apology before hastily retreating. Mason stared at the closed door, so angry he could have killed someone. That night, far away in the capital, the Wan family headquarters was brightly lit. An emergency high-level meeting was in session, the atmosphere heavy with tension. Wanlong Properties stock had plummeted to its daily limit down at the market opening and had stayed there until closing, wiping out over 20 billion in market value in a single day. The entire Wan family had mobilized all their resources, investigating through the night, but they couldn't find a single reason for the crash. It was as if an invisible hand was manipulating everything from behind the scenes. Back in Jiangzhou, Mason stayed with Elise at Riverfront Properties, working late into the night before driving back to his villa alone. The Porsche 911 cruised along the deserted midnight streets. Mason was humming a tune, savoring the memory of his evening with Elise and plotting his next move. Suddenly, a strong sense of danger washed over Mason. Out of the corner of his eye, Mason saw a van with its lights off, speeding out of an intersection and aiming straight for his driver's side door. Damn it, Mason swore, reacting on pure instinct. Mason yanked the steering wheel and slammed his foot on the accelerator. The screech of tires tore through the night as the Porsche executed a daring drift, narrowly avoiding a fatal impact. Bang! The van crashed into the rear of the Porsche. The massive impact sent both vehicles spinning out of control, slamming into the roadside barrier. The back half of the Porsche was almost completely crushed. Mason shook his head to clear it and looked up. A burly man jumped out of the van, a hint of disappointment in his eyes at the failed mission. The man started walking towards Mason. The man exuded the same cold, deadly aura as Mason, an aura forged only on the battlefield. Ding. A choice has been triggered. Option 1. Defeat the retired Soldier King and issue a challenge to Victor Quan. Reward. Wanlong property stock will continue to hit its daily limit down today. Go back and tell Victor Quan. Mason kicked open the mangled car door and jumped out, his eyes like ice. That he messed with the wrong person. Before the words left Mason's mouth, the man had already launched himself forward, a powerful straight punch aimed at Mason's chest. But with a casual, almost lazy motion, Mason raised his hand and caught the powerful fist in his palm. What? The man's eyes widened in disbelief. In the next second, the man felt an irresistible force from Mason's hand, then a blur of motion as something slammed into his body. The man spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying backward like a broken kite. The man gritted his teeth against the pain, rolled to his feet, and without a backward glance, disappeared into the roadside greenery.